also the shit you talk through life is also in broadcasting. As you start to get guests, sort of starts to haunt you. It's like the thing like Howard Stern had to make a gazillion apologies, I assume, by the time the guest he got on. Cause we've done it. Man, we fucked up so bad. We came in one day, we saw Bret Michaels in the Fishbowl when me and Soda were doing the show still.
The Fishbowl? What's the Fishbowl?
Of Sirius XM, it's like there's a studio that you could see into right in the front there where they'll do performances and stuff.
Oh, okay.
And we were up in the in the Fishbowl one time, we saw Bret Michaels, and we came in talking to somebody. And then we go on air, and almost like for the bit, we're like, how do we never get offered these guys? There's always like celebrities here, and they weren't even brought to us so we can get them. It's so fucking crazy. And I go, right now as we speak, Bret Michaels is out there. And then we said something about like his bandana being attached to his hair. And I think Soder said like they lower his bandana and hair onto him like Darth Vader. He just sits there and they lower it on. And then they come back and they go, he said he's willing to come in. So
oh no!
Then he comes in and he's lovely. This guy was making future promises with us of what stuff he wants to do with us and hang out and come be a part of his summer festival and broadcast from there because he loves us so much. But his manager was listening the whole time, and he said as soon as he left the studio, they went, those guys are not your friends. And you're like, shit.
Fuck. Shit. He's got to understand, they didn't know you.
That's what it is.
Now they know you. They're talking shit. It's
Corey
natural.
Feldman hates my guts, and it's like...
What'd you do?
Well, I've never nonstop talking about him. Yeah. We've never stopped going. Oh, yeah.
You hate on his dancing?
Yeah.
Maybe it's getting better.
We're not even hating on it at all. I love it. I want to do nothing different. And I wish he tried to have us not allowed at his show when he opened for Limp Bizkit.
Not allowed?
Yeah, and this head of security was a fan. He came over to me and Bobby Kelly, and he was like, he was asking if you guys were coming. I said yes. Then he asked if he could know where you were. Then he asked if we could not let you in, and I was like, well, they're not doing anything. They're not threatening you or anything. They're coming to watch a show. And he was like, well, can I at least know where they're sitting at? And he goes, it'll be wherever the most excited people are. And son of a bitch, were we. I mean, we were a sprout of grass on a dirt field of people. I mean, we were the only ones. We were hyped. I know all the words. He's the best. But that was the genius of Howard Stern that I fucked up. When I started getting into broadcasting, I broadcasted always like it was going to be me talking to a friend or friends, shooting the shit.
Right.
Not that you're going to come across these people. So I would have played more. What Howard Stern was always great at is like take the lunatic, but he's always going to be like, no, you're great, dude, you're the best, and let the world make the joke.
Right.
And instead, like I go at it, but I was like, man, I would have loved to just have Corey Feldman come in bi-monthly to do, hey, you got a new song? Play it, dude. I'll bite my fucking finger while I... Poor Corey.
The thing about Corey that really does bother me, like legitimately.
We were so happy.
Oh, this is him? Let me hear this.
He yells at his band.
It's such a weird...
The guitar solo. He doesn't know how to play the guitar.
That's so crazy.
But he just does a solo.
How can you do a guitar solo if you don't know how to play a guitar? Does he actually not know how to play a guitar? Like, do you know how to play?
No. But you don't have to know how to play to know he does not know how to play. I could do what he's doing for sure. But then here's what he did. I don't know what the trickleback is, but I said after that was going viral, the guitar, I was like, why doesn't this guy just come out and say like if he's kind of like, no, I get it. I get the joke too. Like, then it kind of like puts people in there, stops them in their tracks. And then he kind of did that. He goes, of course it's the worst guitar solo ever. Of course. That's why I'm doing it. Like, it's funny. And it's like, nah. And Fred Durst came out to watch him do it to prove he was doing it. Because Fred Durst is smart, like Howard Stern. He makes him think he's his friend. But he's a way bigger enemy than I could ever be to him. Because he's going like, dude, go make an ass of yourself in front of all these people.
He's a young star guy that grew up to become a man, and they're all weird. There's no way you could be a star at 6 years old and come out normal. You don't have a normal life. It's impossible.
Is there nobody?
I don't think there's one. Everyone that I've met, I mean, there's some really talented people like Miley Cyrus and people that were childhood stars that are cool to talk to, but they struggle. It's a struggle. All of them struggle. Everybody struggles.
Like Punky Brewster's probably fine right now.
I don't know. I don't even know what that is.
Punky Brewster? You don't remember that show?
I don't remember.
So Leo Moon Fry, she had the biggest titties when we were kids.
Yeah, that's right.
She made a great documentary a few years back.
That's right. But didn't she became like a mom and got out of the business? Yeah, you can do that. But if you
Oh,
want
you're
to
saying if you're still
Yeah.
clamoring for the fame.
Yeah. But I don't know how many people came out of the fame as a young person and were fine. But the people that stay and keep doing it, they're not fine. Most of them. I mean, maybe there's a few. How many times a day do you get bombarded by the whole Bill Burr thing?
When it gets into the family and people I haven't talked to for 20 years.
Then you have to break character and tell the truth?
No, the thing is, this is what's crazy. Okay. You want the whole setup story?
Sure.
I can be quick
Sure.
So where I take my podcast is in one of Howie Mandel's buildings, and he has another building in this area. So I was working on something, and I was supposed to go on Howie's show that day. And they said, Howie will meet you out in the street or something for whatever reason. So I go out in the street, and the first thing Howie says to me when he sees me, he goes, "Here comes Bill Burr." And I go, "You too? Like, do you know this story?" And he said, "No, I don't know about it." And I said, "You know what? Heck with it. I'm just going to tell it on your show, so don't ask me anymore." And I went on the show, and I told this story about how 10 years ago my stepmother came to me and said, "Do you know who Bill Burr is?" I'd never heard of Bill, didn't know who he was, because I don't really consume much popular culture. I had no idea he was a famous comedian. He could have been the lawnmower guy. Looked up Bill. First thing I saw was like, oh my God, he looks just like Daddy. When I was 18 years old at an IHOP on my 18th birthday, my father told me, "You have a half-brother that I sired at the same time as you, whose name is Bill." So suddenly these facts come together, my mother telling me these stories. I talked to my dad subsequently about it, and he was very cagey about it. And when I said, "Why won't you tell me where this person is or who this person is?" he said, "I'm trying to protect you." So when my stepmother had told me, it kind of made sense, like, well, if my half-brother is this super famous comedian, my dad, in a way, wouldn't want me to know, because he wouldn't want me to feel like I was number two because Bill's so famous. I know it sounds crazy, right?
You think that's why he's trying to protect you?
Well, I don't know. So fast forward to Howie saying something on the street. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to say something. And I swear to God, hand on my heart, last time I was with you in California, I almost pulled you aside after we were on, and I was going to tell you the story because I knew you knew Bill, and I was going to back channel, see if there was anything to the story from Bill's side.
Wow.
So imagine 6 or 7 years since we talked on your show.
Yeah, I don't even know.
2018, somebody said to me today. But so anyway, start talking over. But the point is, so here I am. Fast forward. I'm just sick of seeing memes of my face with Bill's, and so I just decide on a spur of the moment, So Howie, of course, loves it. But I said on Howie's show that first time, I don't think Bill's my half brother. I don't think there's anything there other than an uncanny resemblance. Fast forward, the thing comes out, it gets a little bit of social media, and then it goes away. And I think, good. And Bill didn't say anything, so I figured Bill was kind of like, whatever. It was a mild amusement. He could have made a joke out of the whole thing, and he didn't. So then Howie calls me, and I'm in LA working recently, and Howie's like, "We've come on the show, Bill's going to be on." And I said, "Is Bill cool with it?" "Oh yeah, no problem." So then I go there, and it's like, it turns into this thing that you see happening on camera. It's like, it's weirdness times, it's like a skit, but it's real. And Bill's on me, then Bill's on Howie, and it gets just, okay. So I just told you basically everything I know, okay? I have people I've known for 20, 30 years coming up to me going, "What do you think?" And I said, I don't think we're related. I mean, yeah, there's a resemblance, but I don't think we're related. "Well, did you get a DNA test?" And I'm like, "No, I don't. There's nothing to get a DNA test for." "Well, I think he's your brother." So people that know me, and I'm telling them I don't think he's my brother, now they want a DNA test to prove it. That's how much it's taken on a life of its own.
Do you think it's just because they want a DNA test because it's fun if he's your brother?
No. They're convinced.
For real?
Yes.
Really?
For real. I swear to God. I mean, people I'm close to, people that were at my wedding, they're like, "No, you need a DNA test."
Did Bill's dad know, did your dad know Bill's mom?
No, my father wouldn't talk to me about it at all. Okay, some more context.
Okay.
My stepmother in that same time, 10 years ago, when she told me that she thought Bill Burr was my half-brother,
Jesus.
This guy I don't know, right? I mean, just imagine if hey, do you know Joe Polanski?
Right.
And you look up and it's a famous comedian. That's,
Right.
So in that same thing with my stepmother, she told me that she thought my father had sired 12 children.
Whoa.
All over the place. All over the place. He was a traveling musician and a whore to his own admittance. So it kind of makes sense. He once told me he'd slept with 1,000 women. So 12 out of 1,000, you know what I mean? It's
Normal odds.
the math. Yeah, the math.
Actually pretty good.
Yeah. And so when I went to my father and I told him what my stepmother had said, he got really cagey and wouldn't tell me anything. He promised me that he would write down the names of the illegitimate children on a piece of paper so I could find them after he died.
Oh my God.
And he's died and there's no paper.
Oh my God.
So now I got people wanting DNA tests because they're convinced that Bill is my half-brother.
Is Bill willing to do a DNA test?
I think that's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
No, you have to do it.
no, that's what I'm saying. I mean, first of all, to Bill's credit, he's been, everything you saw on camera was I think his general irritation on the thing, but he also kind of finds it funny because he's a comedian.
I thought it was a skit. I thought you guys put together a skit. I really did. I thought because I thought, Bill does a lot of acting. I thought you guys were just around. You like pro wrestling. I thought you guys just decided to troll the world.
Let me, in the heat of that moment with Bill and Howie egging it on, like the emotionality of the thing came out because it's a sort of it's sort of a weird thing. We're suddenly in the middle of a situation. It's like a meta situation.
Right.
So yes, on some level we were playing along, but then it starts to become like, wait, this is kind of weird, and then it starts to kick in, and then Billy Bush is in there, and it took on a life of its own. So what I'm saying is there's enough there that people are all over me to come up with more answers. But you see what I'm saying?
I do.
It's like it's spun out of control into its own thing. Now it's a DNA test problem, which is a bit on its own. Like, we're going to do like a live stream. We'll do it here. Me, you, and Bill. You know what I mean?
Well, people would trust you if the two of you got together and just both took a DNA test and found out you were brothers.
I don't think Bill's my half-brother. But he looks...
Well, listen, there's a simple way to find out. I'll finance it. How much is a DNA test? How much does a DNA test cost to find out if someone's your sibling, Jamie? Let's find out. It can't be that much money. It's 2025. I'll do it.
We'll get it sponsored.
Yes, maybe 23andMe, but didn't they sell out to somebody? Somebody buy them? $200.
There you go.
I'll pay $200 to find out. Why wouldn't you want to know? What did Bill think about this? Like the possibility that his mother had an affair with your dad?
I don't think Bill gives it any credence. That's my sense of it.
Okay. He just thinks it's bullshit.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what Bill thinks. You know what I mean? If a person doesn't believe that somebody is their father, not their real father, that they grew up with, and I do know people who've had that. They grew up with somebody, and in fact, it just happened in my family.
Right.
That a cousin of mine found out that her father was not her father, and she's in her 60s because of a DNA test.
Oh my God.
So it is possible that people can find out later in life, oh, by the way, that guy that you thought was your dad, he ain't your dad. Here's your real dad.
Right.
So it does happen. But I don't get any sense from Bill that he believes that's possible.
Got it.
So the only way would be possible if Bill grew up in some kind of weird lie.
So first I had to go down the flu vaccine bunny trail. And every time I went down that flu vaccine bunny trail, guess what I was asked? What about polio?
Right.
So I thought, all right, even though this has absolutely zero to do with polio because I'm watching people crap out in front of me after influenza vaccines, let's see about polio. Because I knew very little about polio, just like most people walking around out there do, that, it was invented by this guy named Jonas Salk and it saved humanity. We don't see these little crippled kids anymore. We don't have iron lungs anymore. Yay. Well, I would have to say that the polio bunny trail was the darkest one of all.
Because that's the big one.
Yeah.
Right, this is the one that everybody points to. We don't have
Yeah.
crippled kids.
Yeah.
When you look at the historical timeline of polio, what do you think caused it to go, essentially not be a problem anymore?
Okay.
You don't think vaccinations had anything to do with that?
Well, it's not what I think, because that's the thing. Like, look, when I got
Right.
into this,
I'm
I
saying it the
didn't
wrong
say,
way.
oh, I want to argue that vaccines are great. I said, look, I don't care. I didn't have skin in the game. I didn't have vaccine-injured kids. I couldn't have cared less about it, essentially, except that it was something in front of me and didn't make sense. So I thought, wherever the truth falls, that's what I'm going to talk about. So what I say is that what facts line up to show you is that polio is still here. Polio is still alive and well. Polio is called different things today, whereas back in the 1940s, 1950s, the criteria for diagnosing polio were completely different to the year that the vaccine was introduced. The playing field, the goalpost, everything was changed, so that despite the fact that there was more paralytic polio in the years after that vaccine was introduced, they were able to show a complete cascading drop of paralytic polio simply because of the way they changed the definitions of what polio is and what could cause it. And they started testing for the virus, where before they would never test for the virus. And when they started testing for the virus later, what they would find that people had Guillain-Barré syndrome, they didn't have virus, or they had Coxsackie virus or echovirus, or they were lead poisoned or mercury poisoned, which was the mercury and lead were the leading treatments of the day, including bloodletting. They were telling people to take your cigarette and put a little bit of arsenic in there. It's good for your lungs. Yeah, they were literally blowing smoke up people's butts. Like that's where the term comes from. Because if you want to Google that now, you'll see that there's an instrument that does it.
Yeah.
So, Leah, the polio story, where to even begin? And so there's about 70 pages, and so that became my obsession. So when people said, "What about polio?" and I started digging this up, I went deep into it.
Did you dive into pesticides?
Yes, you have to dive into pesticides.
Yeah.
Because the tonnage of production of DDT absolutely mirrored the diagnosis for polio in the days. And the countries that still make DDT today is where we're still seeing this paralytic polio situation happen.
And also, weren't the first cases, did they break out in a rural community?
The first cases of polio, yes.
In the United
very
States,
good.
paralytic
Yes.
polio.
Yes, it was out in the countryside. Well, and that was probably more because of the sheep and cow dipping. So arsenic, you have to look at arsenic, you have to look at the mercurials, you have to look at the calcium arsenate, lead arsenate sprays that were put on trees. But what you're talking about in particular, they were called the cow disease. They'd go out in the family, when you would go to the house, they'd say, all the kids have the cow disease, what the cows had before. Well, what were they doing? They would have these trenches. You talk to farmers, even today. Oh yeah, we had trenches. We would just walk them straight through and I'd be soaked with the stuff by the end of the day.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so they're basically soaking and bathing in arsenic, which is great for killing fleas and ticks. But it's not really great for keeping your nervous system happy, because the fact of the matter is, and this again, I've got medical references, everything, I can't get away with making stuff up, okay? I have to put a reference for everything, but arsenic causes the exact same spinal pathology and fevers and everything. It literally mimics what they were calling polio and a polio virus back in the day.
I read this crazy statistic, and I still can't believe it's real, that 95 to 99% of all polio is asymptomatic.
That's exactly right. So polio virus is what we call a commensal. Just like you have staph on your skin and strep on your skin, and it actually serves a purpose. It keeps other microbes in check as long as you don't get a cut and have not a good immune system to deal from the inside out. So polio, the reason I can say that polio is a commensal is because, again, there are medical studies that showed that people who dared to get on the edge of some of these wild native tribes down in South America or elsewhere, but in particular I'm talking about a South American tribe called the Javante Indians. So the Indian Health Service got to the edge of it and bargained that they would get some stool and some blood from the tribes so that they could test it for polio. And what they found was 98 to 99% of every person they tested, and it was hundreds of people, had evidence of immunity to all three strains of polio. And they said to them, well, where are all your crippled children? Where's your short legs? Where are the people that died of respiratory failure? And they were like, we don't have any of that problem. So it was well known.
Could it possibly be that whatever you're calling polio evolved and became less powerful over time and more contagious? That does happen with some viruses, right?
Most viruses in nature don't become more problematic as they go through the human system. They become less problematic. Remember
Right.
the whole COVID thing. Like in the beginning, people were getting super, super sick. It wasn't as contagious, but it was more virulent. And as it attenuated into the human bodies, it sort of it kind of fizzled out a bit. And then we got the Omicron, which was, less. It was more spreadable, but it was much less pathological. And that's the natural process that happens. So when you're going to have real problems with microbes, they're usually going to be reverse attenuated, meaning made more lethal in a lab, and then they're introduced into the population. And look, I'm not making this up either. 1916, Upper East Side, Manhattan, there was a Rockefeller lab that their specific stated goal was to try to create the most pathological, neuropathological strain of polio possible. And they did that by taking monkey brains and human spinal serum and injecting it into monkeys. And there was a big problem with that, which was released into the public by accident. And the world experienced the worst polio epidemic on record, 25% mortality. That's unheard of. really freaked the public out. But you can see the epicenter as it fanned out, and as time went on, never heard of it again. It attenuates as it moves through the body because it's a normal human commensal that goes back to its normal state when it's in a human. And that's generally what happens. If you have a highly lethal virus and it kills a lot of people, those people are dead. They can't spread anything. So that's kind of a different story if you want to talk about hantavirus or something like that. But as far as polio goes, no, polio was only made more lethal by the stupid things that humans did around it. So make it more invasive into the body, just like you can go do stupid things and end up with herpes outbreaks and, staph outbreaks. Polio virus is the normal commensal it used to be until we obliterated it with oral vaccines and replaced it with vaccine strain. But the wild strains are normal human commensals.
So there's vaccine strain polio that just comes from a vaccine and is transmissible?
Absolutely. Today, it would be the oral polio vaccines because they're the live strains, and they're still giving them pulse fashion all throughout India. They did a campaign a few years back in Israel, and they always say that a nomad came and pooped in the sewage system, and they find it in the sewage system, and they don't want an outbreak to happen, so they treat everybody. So that's today the most common reason to see poliomyelitis disease from a virus. If you test for a virus, they'll usually find a vaccine virus. And that's why today we don't, remember when we were kids, because we're about the same age, I think, they would give us the sugar cube. Maybe you didn't, but I did. I got the sugar cube, and that was the live vaccine. Well, they stopped doing that because after a while, the only cases of polio, and it became so obvious that the only cases of polio we were seeing related to a virus when they tested for poliovirus were vaccine strains, so then they started injecting us again. But the early injections caused more paralytic polio than it prevented. And that's the part that people don't understand when they say, what about polio? Because they like you just go, well, there's no more iron lungs, there's no more crippling, there's no more these poor little kids walking around with their casts. Well, that's not true because the iron lung is now called a ventilator. So that's out the window. Transverse myelitis, which there are about 1,300 cases, I think it's a month diagnosed in one particular, I put a quote in here on that. But transverse myelitis is actually something that would have absolutely follows the same pathology as polio. It would have been called polio back in the day. So we still have polio that we had in 1953, because in 1953, all you had to have to be diagnosed as polio. Anyone could diagnose you, just one examination with one set of muscles being paralyzed. There was no time frame on it. There was no testing done on it. And then it was considered a public service to do it because then you were eligible for funding.
So what do they call it again? Can you say that word again? Myelitis?
Poliomyelitis. Poliomyelitis is the definition of the actual pathology. So it basically means inflammation of the gray matter of your spinal cord. That's what polio in Greek, poliomyelitis. It means gray matter inflammation, poliomyelitis. Poliomyelitis is what happens in the body. Okay, you want to talk about what causes it, then okay, maybe in some cases a poliovirus causes it, and all the other things we just mentioned: arsenic, lead arsenate, calcium arsenate, injections, tonsillectomies were a huge cause of some of the worst cases of poliomyelitis. And in fact, injections and tonsillectomies and unnecessary surgeries were put on hold during years where the epidemics were the worst. So that's just proof that even the surgeons knew that.
Why does it affect it?
Okay, so if you happen to have poliomyelitis circulating in your body that's not just sitting in your intestines and say it made its way into your body, because things can go from your intestines into your body, and you happen to have it close to a nerve that's up, say, around your throat, and then you go and take the tonsils out, then what you've done is you've given that access to the blood compartment, the lymph compartment, and the brain stem, which is right there, local. So those are the people that would get what was called bulbar polio, which is the ones that put you on a ventilator, and it's highly lethal. It's the worst kind of polio to get, bulbar polio. And it was very well known to have been coincident with tonsillectomies. Not only that, but tonsillectomies changed the structure and antibodies and the immunity that occurred in the throat, and changed it for the worse, not for the better. Everybody's got their two vaccines if they're the two diseases they're afraid of for the kid that makes them feel like they're at least doing something.
Well, the polio one always gets thrown in my face.
Yeah.
They say it all the time.
What about polio?
Yeah, and I just go, I don't have the time to do this.
Thank you.
Read the book. To explain to someone the whole DDT connection and the fact that livestock was getting polio. Like, this is the thing. Like, polio, dogs don't get polio. They don't get human-derived polio. It doesn't cross species. But they were getting paralytic polio symptoms because they were getting poisoned by DDT. Right? That was a big part of the whole thing that was very confusing.
Well, they started killing dogs. You know, in New York, in that incident I told you about where the vaccine, the gain-of-function strain escaped, people were throwing their cats out the window. Some 20,000 cats in New York City were killed during that time because there was a belief that cats spread the disease.
Oh, my God. Jesus Christ. That's so crazy, and it was all a mutant man-made virus. The man-made virus thing
It was a wound up virus.
Wound up.
It was basically a natural virus that got kind of wound up by
So
humans.
man-made to the final form.
So no, I didn't have apprehension. I was like, this information, it's been so, the U.S. polio surveillance unit charts were supposed to be available in libraries. Lo and behold, every library I went to find them, I was told they're not here. There's only one library, the AMA library, and you have to have special high security clearance to look at them. Well, I won't say how, but I got a hold of them. And what those documents show is that it wasn't just Cutter Laboratories that had a problem with live polio. It wasn't just Wyeth. All the vaccine, we didn't talk about this, but all the vaccine companies had a problem with live virus in their injectable vaccines during Salk's year. So 1954, 1955, up to 1959, they all were producing vaccines with live virus in it because Salk wouldn't listen to the scientists abroad who were saying his inactivation curve was where the sun doesn't shine. So that beginning of that and just tracking all that down and asking the questions that you asked, well, where did polio go? Well, you know, what was really causing the paralysis? Why don't we see it today? Like, I had to answer all those questions, and every question I answered, it was so satisfying that I just wanted to go on to the next question. And so there was never any hesitation because I was so single-minded that I didn't think about, you know, the threats that could happen as a result of that. And it wasn't until after the book was out that the threats happened, and I'm still here. And look, I figure if anybody wants to do me in now, the timing is really bad because this is pretty much out there now.
It's been out there for a while. The Jonas Salk thing was also wild. I thought Jonas Salk was this genius that created this incredible virus that saved humanity.
Yeah, so did I. So many of our childhood fables turn out not to be true. But that was a big one, and it's still hard for a lot of people to believe.
What was the first one that you got, the first assignment that you got where like, oh boy, this is big leagues?
That was the Outlaws case. I'd already done some undercovers, again, in the FBI. I'd done several street-level things, or numerous, whatever, at the state level. But I was doing a couple of cases in the FBI, and they were smaller. You know, maybe it was supposed to be interstate transportation of stolen goods, and it turned into a public corruption case. But when I landed the Outlaws case, that was my first big, and probably one of the biggest I did.
So how does that go? How did that start?
I'm not a smart man, so that's how it started. Why do you do this, Scott? I go, I'm not smart. I am stupid. I'm a glutton for punishment, and my last name's Payne. You know, in that case, they'll do canvases. A lot of times, so I was an undercover coordinator. Every division has an undercover coordinator, so you are the front line on all things covert, and you're the liaison between headquarters and that field office. So if I had a case come up, I may already know you or whoever and be like, hey, I'll just put a text out to you. You interested? Or we may just send out a canvas, and then a canvas comes from headquarters and goes to every undercover coordinator. And if it gets to the point to where no certified undercovers have responded, then they'll do like a bureau-wide canvas and see what we can get. I can't remember exactly if somebody called me on that one. I'm pretty sure. I don't remember that Outlaws being a canvas, but it possibly could have been.
Well, you fit the bill.
Well, yeah, yeah.
You look like an outlaw biker.
It depends, a slash Viking, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. It depends. See, that's what a lot of people, I'll get off on a tangent, but so throughout my career, my mentors, my peers, people I've been blessed to mentor, some people come up in the office, very good friends, unbelievable agents. I mean, brainiacs, awesome. They'll be like, man, I could never do what you do. My beard would be down to here, whatever, tatted up. And I'm like, well, don't do me. What's your background? And they're like, well, I was an accountant. And I'm like, with who? Before the FBI, I was accountant with Disney or whatever. I was this. I was a lawyer. Will you be you? I'm not. Somebody's probably going to be pissed because they're going to say it's trade craft. But listen, I could bring you in, and you just walk into the group. I'm the primary. I've already laid all this stuff out. It's a chess game. We're always trying to stay 4 or 5 moves ahead. Or we're master of puppets. I'm just trying to connect with people and work the scene. But you come in and you dress as an accountant and you talk like an accountant and then you walk out, you're you. It's real.
Right.
So
there's roles for all sorts of different types of personalities and life skills.
yeah, and I'm like, you might see something where they say, I need a person this tall that speaks this language, that does this and knows this, but what are you trying to do? Essentially, the FBI works everything. And if a target, if we have predication or predicated target, or there's information coming in about somebody doing something nefarious, if we want to do an undercover, how do I get close to you? I mean, what do you find attractive? Usually it's money. In the criminal world, it's green, right? Mm-hmm. You can see the Mexican mafia working with the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas. They hate each other, but they love green. And one needs guns and one needs dope, and it all in the criminal world. But for that case, I went up, I got interviewed by, of course, the FBI. There were task forces there, DEA was there, ATF was there, and they had been working this case for a while. And generally, this is the way it would work for me on these long-term type undercovers. The case team's been working this for a long time, a year plus. They've been building intelligence. Now, they've got some evidence already, maybe a seizure of dope here, report of a carjacking here, but to get that airtight case and to find out what's really going on, now they're at the point to where they can use the investigative technique, which is undercover. And we came up with a plan, and I went in cold. I tried to bump them, as we say, cold bump. But I went into a bar that they frequented. I went there when they weren't there. It was a strip club. I used to bounce at strip clubs. In the book, I make a joke because I call them a gentleman's club, but then I say that's an oxymoron because I'm like, everyone I've been in, there's not a lot of gentlemen in there, and that includes me back in the whatever days they were. But I knew how they worked. So I went in there and I just started hanging out. And of course, this accent in Boston, Massachusetts, I'm getting noticed as soon as I start talking. All right, where the hell are you from? And I kind of worked that and started working the bar, doing what I do. Not everybody has their own way. And let me say this, since it's at the beginning. Listen, for me, I want people to know it comes from a humble spot. There are men and women out there that have done way more undercovers than me. They have been through more harrowing things than me. I already said, I've got mentors, I've got peers, I've got people I've been blessed to mentor. Some of them don't want to talk. Some of them haven't had the opportunity. So just know it's coming from a love kind of place.
Got it. So when you say you work in the bar, what do you mean? You just like making friends with people there?
What I did last night here in Austin. Same thing.
Is it like old habits die hard?
Yeah, I just walk out like, hey man, how's it going? Yeah,
It's like catch and release. You're like pretending.
Yeah, it's still working your gap. Yeah.
That's interesting. So you're always working your skill set, even though you're not on the job anymore.
Yeah, I know. Right. I love connecting with people. I don't care whether you're smart, stupid, big, skinny, fat, any ethnicity, doesn't matter. And that's one thing I do miss about the job. I miss getting called out at 2 a.m. for the craziest of the crazies. And
Really?
You show up to do an interview, and essentially I befriend you, and you either confess or we find out you really weren't doing anything.
By the way, sanctuary cities, that's a Republican thing. You know that, right? I think that's Reagan. The concept of a sanctuary city was Reagan. Because as the great Bernie Sanders sometimes and then not said, that is a Koch brothers proposition, open borders, right? But then the Democrats suddenly hate open borders after they were all like, no, we got to have borders. And then the people that they wind up with their programming are still running around driving their fat scooters into Teslas like it matters.
But those are the same people that I was talking about earlier. Those Tesla protesters, They're the same people that join cults. They're the same people that
That don't know Democrats mostly
Yeah.
own Teslas?
they're the
Idiot.
same people that are getting paid to go to the rallies. There's a certain underclass of really fucking dumb people out there that you can exploit. You can get them to do a lot of shit, man. And
I would say the government employees are that.
but
Look,
if you're hiring them
Yeah.
all the time for protest, they're essentially government employees that are just designed to perform propaganda. If you're using government money and you're paying people to go to a rally and you're giving them signs and you're making them cheer and you're giving them money and food,
So I found this is an article on the Daily Mail, but they're discussing what he said at the Wisconsin rally this week, I think, about Social Security and illegal aliens.
okay, it says lawfully present non-citizens of the United States who meet all eligibility requirements can qualify for Social Security benefits, the SSA website states. This rule also applies to non-citizens authorized to work in the United States who got a Social Security number after December of 2003.
well, did they pay into it or no?
I don't know what. Let me finish this. Still clips the explanation and other portions of the Wisconsin event quickly went viral on Musk's social media app X as users cheered the fraud-finding effort. It's absolutely infuriating. One user wrote in response, I hate when they do that, like they'll post people's tweets.
Yeah.
One user said, like, stop. Biden and team, you're forming a narrative. There's a lot of users.
Well, look.
Biden and team were bringing
yeah.
in millions of immigrants and putting them on benefits, another user wrote, reacting to the SSA numbers. I know Elon keeps saying it was for votes, but that can't be the
They're
only
correct.
reason.
They're correct. Our military, people joining the military is all-time low. I think that Dick Durbin talking about we need new cops who don't want the money that old cops got. We need new workers like at Purdue where they fired citizens from a government program to bring in asylum seekers and pay them less. It's always about lowering your pay. Every single goddamn thing is we got to be competitive.
It says, people sometimes, this is Musk saying, people sometimes think that under the Biden administration, he was simply asleep with the switch. They weren't asleep
That's
at
correct.
the switch. It was a massive,
Yes.
large-scale program to import as many illegals as possible, ultimately to change the entire voting map of the United States and disenfranchise the American people and make it a permanent, deep blue, one-party state from which there would be no escape, the 53-year-old entrepreneur shared. Another user reacted on X. Okay.
He's right, but it's
He's
not
right.
just that. It's not just that.
Okay.
Add this. There's another article I was going to bring up. They said that these claims are being claimed, but then they've like asked for evidence. They have
Which claims exactly?
entitlements fraud here specifically. You brought it up on this podcast.
Right. It says in an interview with us, okay, the single biggest thing they're worried about is Doge going to turn off fraudulent payments of entitlements. Okay. It says this lacks evidence. Unauthorized immigrants are not eligible for most safety net benefits, and there's no evidence to suggest
I
they are
don't know.
committing fraud
Sure
en
or
masse
not.
to obtain them. But hold on, it's not fraud. If you ask people
Right.
if they have headaches and then you give them permanent Social Security, or you ask them if they have bad back, who the fuck that's 40 doesn't have a bad back? All you have to do is say your back hurts, and bam. If they were really encouraging people to do that, and they really are giving them Social Security numbers, why are you doing that?
Okay, it's
You
not
would-
just
but you're not
Biden,
doing it
yeah.
because you're super nice. You're not doing it because you're super
I'll tell you
kind.
why.
You're doing it because you want them to vote for you.
So, you know,
right?
MS
They did an
killed-
autopsy on JFK too, and it was not his body.
Well,
Probably.
sort of. They did two autopsies.
Right.
They did. The initial examination of the body was in Dallas, and then they flew it to Bethesda.
Yeah.
The thing about that is, and this is a part of David Lifton's book, Best Evidence, which made me become a conspiracy theorist.
I've never read it.
It's great. And David Lifton, who is an accountant, they gave him, I forget what the project was, but it was something to do with the Warren Commission report. So this guy's like a serious bookworm. He read the entire Warren Commission, which nobody does.
Yup.
And it's like 9,000 pages. or
That's a
something like that.
superpower. Being
Yeah.
able to read like that.
Exactly, and find contradictions over and over and over again. He's like, this whole thing's horseshit. Then he found out that Kennedy's brain was missing when it got all the way to Bethesda. He found out that the Dallas doctors said that the neck wound was an entry wound, and then the ones in Bethesda turned it into a tracheotomy hole. It was a bullet hole. He got
Yeah.
shot. You could see him go like
Garbage
that.
all over the place. And then you
Yeah.
can also see his face get blown off, and they published photos of him from the official autopsy where his face was visible.
I have a theory, and this is just mine.
Yeah, I'm
and
really
I'm
curious
sure
to
I'm
hear
not the
yours.
only one. I think he got shot in the head at the same time from two different directions.
That's a good theory, honestly.
Because there's a bit of spray that goes forward, which is not like things are weird when you hit them with bullets. Like people have shot people in the head and the bullets come out their eye.
Yeah,
like
like
it ricochets
around the
around like
back
a
of the
22
skull.
or something like
Yep.
that. Weird things happen when you shoot things, but some things are super consistent. And one thing that's super consistent is when you hit something, it goes in the direction that you hit it, right? So back and to the left. Hicks used to talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
Back and to the left.
Yeah.
When making fun of the fact that this Zapruder film clearly showed that it wasn't a shot from the back. But the head goes spray too. It goes spray like this back and to the left. Can we see it? Let's see it real quick.
Yeah, something I love about the JFK story is that there are so many deep experts that have really done the dig, and they don't all come to the same conclusions.
Well, here's the thing about Lipton's book. He also documents how many witnesses were murdered. And it's astounding.
That's the
All
part
these
that often
witnesses,
gets left off,
their
too.
cars got parked on railroad tracks, and they died
Weird.
of heart attacks when they were 30, and they got shot in a robbery, and they committed
coincidences.
suicide. They gassed. They fell asleep in their car.
Man, Hillary Clinton sure got started early.
Yeah. Back into the left. Watch this. Watch this. The explosion.
Yeah, because he's already hitting the neck. You're totally
See-
right. It's like
see-
a cloud in
right?
the front, right?
I mean, it could be that the top of his head exploded right there, and the force drives him back. It also could. There's another possibility, and the possibility is spontaneous nerve reaction of your body shutting down,
Yeah.
which could cause you to go back into the left, even if you get shot in the front.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the spray, or if you get shot in the back, rather, the spray looks like it's going forward. Like, we'll watch when he gets hit. See that?
Yep. It's just weird.
But that could be. But the thing is, there's not a bullet hole on the other side. So that could be just the opening of the head, and it's an explosion of blood that comes out. Also, you have to realize he's probably bleeding internally already. He got shot in the neck. So he gets shot here. There's probably blood spraying all over the place inside of his head. And then, boom, he gets shot in the front of his head. But his head clearly goes back into the left.
Yep.
Like almost instantaneously.
I
And
mean-
in a way that you would imagine if someone got hit like that. Watch this again. Boom,
Oh,
he gets
good
hit,
catch on that frame.
and then back.
And it's all gone. Like his face is just
Oh, it's
clearly
gone,
open right
gone.
there.
Right.
And it's clearly not a shot from behind. I mean, like,
It's definitely not. It's definitely not a shot from behind because there's no entry wound
Yeah.
in the back of his head. And if you're saying that that thing hit the front of his head or the side of his head from behind like that,
I feel like if there was a conspiracy theorist training course, the JFK assassination would be like the perfect like dry run training course to like build it around, because you have all the pieces. You have a complex conspiracy with unknown actors from intelligence agencies and organized crime and maybe multiple governments. It's like, and we don't know all that. Then you have a complex cover-up that evolved over time. You have like researchers. You have bad information being fed in from outside. You have conspiracy theorists that are taking it in directions that are like corroborable.
Right.
It's got all the things that you need to both learn how to dig into and learn how to watch out for. It's a lot of fun.
well, and also people didn't really get serious about it until about 12 years after the assassination.
Yep.
So when Geraldo Rivera has Dick Gregory on his show, oh, what is this?
Whoa. Have you guys ever heard the theory that frames were taken out of the Zapruder film to make it
that
look like
one's
the car never
crazy.
slowed down?
That's crazy.
That's bizarre. The
This-
thing is, I don't know how to trust things like AI reconstructions of videos.
Let's just trust it, bro. It's fine. Boom. Oh my goodness.
Dude,
That
poor
is
Jackie,
so
man.
crazy.
So
Oh my God, that's so crazy.
the theory about the driver shooting him, that's the one I've never bought, honestly.
No, that's
People always say the
that's
driver turned
stupid.
around and shot him. It's
I
like,
think
no.
that's one of those theories that probably the government created.
Yeah.
That's one of those
There's
theories
an open
to make
piece of
people look
evidence.
stupid.
There's an open piece of evidence of some kids that showed up covered in mud at a car shop that they worked at. That it was like a dry day. They showed up covered in mud, and there's a certain guy that theorized that they were hiding in a manhole and shot up at him out of the manhole, and that the car slows down in real life, and that witnesses saw the car slow down, and that there's drop frames from the Zapruder film, and it's like these are these kinds of theories where it's like how do you dig into that and like prove that? And the answer is you have to get to primary sources. You have to get to, like, is there a police report for that kid showing up? Like, is that location real? Like, can you corroborate any of this?
Right.
And the unfortunate truth is you could, if you could see the files that our government was hiding from us.
Right.
Theoretically,
Well,
anyways.
they're supposed to be released soon. You know?
How likely is it that this is a coincidence? Is it even possible?
Right.
Right.
That one's very unlikely, which means they were killing witnesses. Someone was killing witnesses. I think there was people shooting from the back and the front.
Oh, yeah.
I think Lee Harvey Oswald, people want to say it's 1 or 0. I think Lee Harvey Oswald was in on it. I think Lee Harvey Oswald probably didn't shoot the president, though. But he might have. He might have hit him in the back, because there was a shot in the back, too. You know, the whole reason why they had to call this a tracheotomy is the same reason why they had to come up with the single bullet theory.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you're deep.
Because you got to
in this.
explain it. Well,
You know,
I'm not. I'm
you
as
know about
deep
the
as-
ricochet underneath the overpass?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, like I'm deep enough to know the basics, but there's so many layers, and you have to read the books, you have to watch the films, you have to like
You gotta talk
see
to
the
Oliver
interviews.
Stone.
Exactly.
Oliver Stone just goes off.
And that's why I was curious to hear your takes, because you've actually talked to these people.
Oliver Stone's the best, because he's been studying this forever, and he can tell you exactly what's going on with Dulles and with...
And he's not just been studying it forever, he's
Yeah.
been studying the actual primary source documents themselves, and like reading the real archives that are released.
He goes, I can read all these different languages, but this one is so different than all the others, and it doesn't have anything that's like it. Like a lot of these other languages, you can find similarities in the way they're structured, the way the sentences are structured. There's none of that with Sumerian. It's like, this is a wacky language.
Yeah.
He's like, I can't read it.
That's
And
so
he was
good.
brilliant.
Yeah.
So when you talk to a guy like that, who's humble about it,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
but also like very well read.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know what's going on.
What does it?
Give that to the kid.
So
You know?
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's a lot of opportunity to really get into that with these nonverbal kids if you find one that... Is there more than one that has this ability to do this?
I mean, I can only comment on the people I've met, but I think of all the people that we're talking to a lot, you know, for the project and now the film, yeah, I mean, it's definitely more than one. I mean, at least I know 15 or 20 who can, who seem to know various languages they haven't been taught.
15 or 20?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and one of the earlier children that Dr. Powell was studying, this boy knew really kind of odd languages like Russian and Japanese, and I think he was 5 or 6, and could just speak in different languages and knew different languages. It's absolutely remarkable.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is there like even the most out there theory about what's going on?
I mean, this is the thing, right? There hasn't been a lot of research around this phenomena, and I think I can only go again off of what spellers have said, which makes sense. That would be what telepathy is, right? If you're not
Right.
using words.
Well, that is
Right.
our version of telepathy. We
Right.
make noise with our mouth, and then you can read my mind.
Right?
Sort
Yeah,
of,
kind of.
Kind of.
I mean,
In a clumsy way.
yeah. But if you think of prayer, right? That's telepathy. If people who come back from a near-death experience and they say they have these communications with someone, you don't have a body. I mean, that's telepathy, right? Like, if a medium is talking to someone or getting messages from someone who's passed, like that's telepathy. So it seems like the baseline. To me, like all of this is proven for me that we have a soul, or you know, there's at least, if that word is triggering into someone, that at least there's a conscious body. There's a consciousness in each of us that doesn't need a body. Like, and so I think the language thing is like we've put words over this thing, and but the telepathy, the baseline is there no matter what. And if you can understand the baseline of what's being communicated, the words don't matter. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, it does. It's hard to grasp, but it makes sense. Are you aware of the history of research in ayahuasca?
I mean, I know what it is, but yeah, like
One of the more interesting aspects of it is when scientists first discovered its properties, and they did experiments on it. They wanted to call one of the ingredients telepathy. But due to the rules of scientific nomenclature, they realized that it had already been named harmine. So this harmine is one of the ingredients. It's in one of the plants that's used to make this brew. But when the scientists explored this and started experimenting with it, it's somewhere in the early 20th century. they realized that they could read each other's minds, and that they were communicating, and that they were having a shared experience that seemed to be completely mental, but independently they all verified the exact same thing. And so that's why they wanted to name it telepathy, which is a way more fun word than harmony.
Way more fun.
Yeah. But this idea that we need something to access this dormant part of what is human consciousness. 31-year-old makeup artist falsely deported to El Salvador prison, lawyer says. Immigration attorney say a gay Venezuelan makeup artist seeking asylum in the U.S. was wrongly detained as a gang member and deported to El Salvador. The case becoming a flashpoint in the debate over the Trump administration's deportation of hundreds of migrants to a notoriously inhumane El Salvador mega prison. So again, it's hard to know
It's hard to know.
what's real and what's not real, but if it is real, this is fucking horrible.
But if you think about it, Joe, like I say, if you're rounding up hundreds of people, mistakes are going to get made because everyone's human.
100%.
And you then have to have a system, I think, that allows you to amend and make adjustments for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can't be bury your head in the sand and
No.
pretend it didn't happen.
No.
Yeah.
And this is the trouble with government. The incentive structure is all wrong. Like, to admit that is now embarrassing,
That's crazy.
right? And it's scary. We have the same problem in the UK in terms of the illegal immigration. And if we ever get a government that's going to deal with that, we're also going to have to remove a lot of people who are there illegally. They shouldn't be there. A lot of them are. And, you know, like I said, we had a report that shows they're way more likely to commit sexual crimes, way more likely to commit violent crimes, they're way more likely to commit all sorts of crimes. We are going to have to remove them, but you have to do it in a way where there's due process and a respect.
Are they trying to remove them in England?
No.
At all?
They're saying they are, but they're not removing them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the mistakes like that have to be corrected if you want reasonable people to be on board with you.
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
If you want, compassionate people to be on board with you, you can't deport gay hairdressers seeking asylum. That's fucking crazy. And then throw them in an El Salvador prison.
That's not even his country.
Right.
You deport
exactly.
people back to their country.
Right. It's nuts. It's just, what was the story with the student that got arrested for writing an op-ed piece?
Is that the Khalil guy or
No, the woman.
Is that the girl from the Korean girl from? Is that the Korean girl from Columbia University? I don't know.
Korea?
No, that's a different one. There's so many of them. There was a woman who got arrested for writing some sort of a thing. This is a Turkish student at Tufts University. Latest Palestinian supporter swept up in U.S. crackdown. What did she get arrested for? Have you seen this one?
I saw it, but I haven't delved into it.
Joe, sorry, can I have the lights?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
She engaged in activities in support of Hamas, a foreign terrorist organization that relishes the killing of Americans.
But the department did not provide evidence of that support.
Right.
What does that mean? I heard she wrote some piece on Israel.
Yeah. I don't know what the law of that is because she's not an American national.
Right.
But instinctively, I'm just like, that's a lot. That's like crazy.
I think she's been in America though since she was 7.
Right. Has she?
I believe so.
I thought she had a student visa.
I think she's been in America since she was very young. I think that's one of the things that I've read.
Okay. She'd previously been arrested in April 2024 for taking part.
Taking part in protests at Columbia University. So it seems like they're really trying to crack down on some of these Columbia protests, right?
And I'm in two minds about that because I think on a free speech basis, unless I don't know the law. Second person.
Oh, this is a second person that was arrested? Oh, second pro-Palestinian Columbia University protester. Okay, so this second person has been arrested before. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, are we really arresting people for protesting? Or are they protesting and also causing vandalism and violence? Like, what are we saying?
We don't know, right?
All right.
But I think there's the legal thing from what I've read is very complicated because if someone is not a U.S. national,
Right.
they may be subject to different rules or they may not. I think that's a kind of live debate. But from a purely principles perspective, someone being arrested for writing an article seems extreme.
30-year-old was arrested and physically restrained by immigration officers near her apartment close to Tufts University's Somerville campus, where she was a PhD student. 6 plainclothes officers surrounded, how do you say that name? Ozturk?
Ozturk.
Ozturk. As she walked alone, neighborhood surveillance video appears to show the officers did not show their badges until she was restrained, the video shows. She affiliated with prestigious American universities to be arrested for reported activities related to terrorist organizations amid the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. So what did she say, though? Like,
She engaged in activities in support of Hamas. What does that mean?
right, without specifying what those alleged activities were. Yeah, this is scary shit.
Yeah.
You know, especially if it's just protesting. I mean, I don't know, you know.
Look, the counter argument on this, and I think it's one that I, as someone who visits the United States, also feel is like, I don't think the United States would have given this person a visa if she had told them this is what she plans to do in America, right? So that's their argument. That's the argument that Marco Rubio is making, which is, if we'd known you were going to do this, we were never going to give you a visa.
Right. I don't think this is the one that I'm thinking about that was here since she was 7.
No, that's a Korean girl at Columbia University, Judge.
Oh, okay. And they're talking about deporting her, right?
Yes, they're talking about deporting her, but I don't know enough about
And
that.
what had she done? Did she committed vandalism or?
I don't know enough about it. Jamie, if you get it up, then we can have a look at it. But that's the one you're thinking of, the girl who's been here since she was 7, is a Columbia student. Yeah.
Interesting. So Colombia is the hotbed.
Yeah.
I wonder why. Why particularly Colombia?
Well, there have been a lot of protests, pro-Palestine protests in Colombia.
There should. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the girl. You know, we're rapidly approaching the time where America and the UK is going to have a pretty uncomfortable debate as to what is acceptable and what is unacceptable when it comes to dealing with people who come here illegally, people who commit crime, or even if they attend protests. Where is the line? Because we're going to have to make a decision. Because until we do that and we start to actually apply the law as it's meant to be applied and put certain laws in place, then these type of things are just going to continue to happen.
100%, especially if someone wants them to happen. Because that's my fear, is that a lot of these things are paid for and organized, including a lot of these protests at universities. And I think they're doing it on purpose. I think they're trying to build up a lot of passion in these people for being disruptive, and a lot of passion for protest and passion for, and then they weaponize it. I really do. I believe that's exactly what they did with the Tesla buildings, with all the Tesla dealerships being light on fire. I think they weaponized it, and it's a good test run. You know, if they can weaponize it against Tesla, they can do that with a lot of other things to justify that kind of vandalism and fire and arson and all the chaos and property destruction.
I went to UCLA campus, this was May last year, and I went to a pro-Palestine demonstration, and I just went around just interviewing people, talking to students, and both on pro-Palestine and the other side. And one thing one of the kids said to me was, as he was trying to get into the library, he was like, you know, most of the people who are doing this, they're not from UCLA. They're not from this college campus.
Right.
What are they doing here?
Right.
He goes, look, fair enough, if you want to protest and you go to UCLA, that's all cool, whatever. Number one, don't stop me from getting an education when my parents have paid X amount for it. But number two, like, he pointed at one of the dudes. He was like, that guy's about 42. I know he doesn't go to my college.
Right.
Why is he here protesting?
It's being paid.
Yeah, and you're right. And there are a lot of foreign governments that want this shit to be going on.
100%. 31-year-old makeup artist falsely deported to El Salvador prison, lawyer says. Immigration attorney say a gay Venezuelan makeup artist seeking asylum in the U.S. was wrongly detained as a gang member and deported to El Salvador. The case becoming a flashpoint in the debate over the Trump administration's deportation of hundreds of migrants to a notoriously inhumane El Salvador mega prison. So again, it's hard to know
It's hard to know.
what's real and what's not real, but if it is real, this is fucking horrible.
But if you think about it, Joe, like I say, if you're rounding up hundreds of people, mistakes are going to get made because everyone's human.
100%.
And you then have to have a system, I think, that allows you to amend and make adjustments for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can't be bury your head in the sand and
No.
pretend it didn't happen.
No.
Yeah.
And this is the trouble with government. The incentive structure is all wrong. Like, to admit that is now embarrassing,
That's crazy.
right? And it's scary. We have the same problem in the UK in terms of the illegal immigration, and if we ever get a government that's going to deal with that, we're also going to have to remove a lot of people who are there illegally. They shouldn't be there. A lot of them are. And, you know, like I said, we had a report that shows they're way more likely to commit sexual crimes, way more likely to commit violent crimes, they're way more likely to commit all sorts of crimes. We are going to have to remove them, but you have to do it in a way where there's due process and a respect.
Are they trying to remove them in England?
No.
At all?
No. They're saying they are, but they're not removing them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the mistakes like that have to be corrected if you want reasonable people to be on board with you.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
If you want, you know, compassionate people to be on board with you, you can't deport gay hairdressers seeking asylum. That's probably crazy. And then throw them in an El Salvador prison.
It's not even his country.
Right.
You deport
Exactly.
people back to their country.
Right. It's nuts. It's just, what was the story with the student that got arrested for writing an op-ed piece?
Is that the Khalil guy or
No, the woman.
Is that the girl from the Korean girl from? Is that the Korean girl from Columbia University? I don't know.
Korea.
No, that's a different one. There's so many of them. There was a woman who got arrested for writing some sort of a thing. This is a Turkish student at Tufts University. Latest Palestinian supporter swept up in U.S. crackdown. What did she get arrested for? Have you seen this one?
I saw it, but I haven't delved into it.
Joe, sorry, could I have the light?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
She engaged in activities in support of Hamas, a foreign terrorist organization that relishes the killing of Americans.
But the department did not provide evidence of that support.
Right.
You know, what does that mean? I heard she wrote some piece on Israel.
I don't know what the law of that is because she's not an American national.
Right.
But instinctively, I'm just like, that's a lot. That's like crazy.
I think she's been in America though since she was 7.
Right. Has she?
I believe so.
I thought she had a student visa.
I think she's been in America since she was very young. I think that's one of the things that I'd read.
Okay. She'd previously been arrested in April 2024 for taking part.
Taking part in protests at Columbia University. So it seems like they're really trying to crack down on some of these Columbia protests, right?
And I'm in two minds about that because I think on a free speech basis, unless I don't know the law.
Sorry, that was
Second person.
Oh, this is a second person that was arrested?
second arrest.
Oh, second pro-Palestinian Columbia University protester. Okay, so this second person has been arrested before. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, are we really arresting people for protesting? Or are they protesting and also causing vandalism and violence? Like, what are we saying?
We don't know, right?
All right.
But I think there's the legal thing from what I've read is very complicated because if someone is not a U.S. national,
Right.
they may be subject to different rules or they may not. I think that's a kind of live debate. But from a purely principles perspective, someone being arrested for writing an article seems extreme.
30-year-old was arrested and physically restrained by immigration officers near her apartment close to Tufts University's Somerville campus, where she was a PhD student. 6 plainclothes officers surrounded, how do you say that name? Ozturk? Ozturk. As she walked alone, neighborhood surveillance video appears to show the officers did not show their badges until she was restrained, the video shows. She affiliated with prestigious American universities to be arrested for purported activities related to terrorist organizations amid the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. So what did she say though? Like,
She engaged in activities in support of Hamas. What does that mean?
right, without specifying what those alleged activities were. Yeah, this is scary shit.
Yeah.
You know, especially if it's just protesting. I mean, I don't know, you know.
Look, the counter argument on this, and I think it's one that I, as someone who visits the United States, also feel is like, I don't think the United States would have given this person a visa if she had told them this is what she plans to do in America, right? So that's their argument. That's the argument that Marco Rubio is making, which is, if we'd known you were going to do this, we were never going to give you a visa.
Right. I don't think this is the one that I'm thinking about that was here since she was 7.
No, that's a Korean girl at Columbia University, Joe.
Oh, okay. And they're talking about deporting her, right?
Yes, they're talking about deporting her, but I don't know enough about
And
that.
what had she done? Had she committed vandalism or?
I don't know enough about it. Jamie, if you get it up, then we can have a look at it. But that's the one you're thinking of, the girl who's been here since she was 7, is a Columbia student. Yeah.
Interesting. So Colombia is the hotbed.
Yeah.
I wonder why. Why particularly Colombia?
Well, there have been a lot of protests, pro-Palestine protests in Colombia.
Their shit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the goal. You know, we're rapidly approaching the time where America and the UK is going to have a pretty uncomfortable debate as to what is acceptable and what is unacceptable when it comes to dealing with people who come here illegally, people who commit crime, or even if they attend protests.
Yeah.
Where is the line? Because we're going to have to make a decision. Because until we do that and we start to actually apply the law as it's meant to be applied and put certain laws in place, then these type of things are just going to continue to happen.
Yeah, 100%, especially if someone wants them to happen. Because that's my fear, is that a lot of these things are paid for and organized, including a lot of these protests at universities. I think they're doing it on purpose. And I think they're trying to build up a lot of passion in these people for being disruptive, and a lot of passion for protest and passion for, and then they weaponize it. I really do. I believe that's exactly what they did with the Tesla buildings, with all the Tesla dealerships being light on fire. They weaponized it, and it's a good test run. You know, if they can weaponize it against Tesla, they can do that with a lot of other things to justify that kind of vandalism and fire and arson and all the chaos and property destruction.
I went to UCLA campus, this was May last year, and I went to a pro-Palestine demonstration, and I just went around just interviewing people, talking to students, and both on pro-Palestine and the other side. And one thing one of the kids said to me was, as he was trying to get into the library, he was like, you know, most of the people who are doing this, they're not from UCLA. They're not from this college campus.
Right.
What are they doing here?
Right.
He goes, look, fair enough, if you want to protest and you go to UCLA, that's all cool, whatever. Number one, don't stop me from getting an education when my parents have paid X amount for it. But number two, like, he pointed at one of the dudes. He was like, that guy's about 42. I know he doesn't go to my college.
Right.
Why is he here protesting?
It's being paid.
Yeah, and you're right. And there are a lot of foreign governments that want this shit to be going on.
100%. There was some lady who was just arguing that there's no biological difference between men and women. I'm gonna send you this, Jamie, because it's so kooky. You're like, come
Doctor
on.
Who.
You can't really think that this is true. This is
No biological difference?
there's no difference between men and women's strength. Pennsylvania state senator said there's no biological advantage for men in women's sports or disadvantage for women in men's sports.
That's a woman?
A woman said this. This is so crazy. I just sent it to you, Jamie. It's so kooky. You're like, come on. Look, I know you want to believe this, but if you're going to be on TV saying things, it has to make some kind of fucking sense.
Female bodies are just as strong, as fast and capable as male bodies. I want all girls to know that there are elected officials like me who would never underestimate your ability to beat a boy at their own sport. Because that's what the premise of this bill assumes, that female bodies are less than male bodies. For what reason, other than political gain, are we spending time and taxpayer dollars on a completely made-up issue? Female bodies are just as strong.
That's so crazy
What
to
guy
say.
hurt her?
Well, she just got caught up in the woke bullshit. She lives in an echo chamber, probably. All the people around her are all either in academia or in some sort of left-wing fucking ideology, and they really believe that. And they believe that you should say that. Because if you're not saying that, you're saying women are less than men. That's not what anybody's saying. Strength and speed and athleticism is not all of life.
Well, you made the point. There's men that are less than men in different areas.
Yeah.
Of course.
They're called coders. They're out there. Like, you know, they're incels. They're online. They're making apps. You know, there's a lot of different roles for people in this life. It doesn't make you a man just because you can run faster than everybody else. But to say that men can't run faster than women is just, you're denying statistics and science and all the information that we have gathered forever. We have so much data. High school 15-year-old boys beat the women's soccer team, the professional team. So shut the fuck up. This is stupid to say. This is stupid to say. It's not transphobic, homophobic. It's not genderphobic. It's not misogynistic. It's just a fact of physical nature.
But also, if you hit the pinnacle, the fight's over. Do you know what I mean? If you just go like women's sports is highly attended, it's given the same amount of TV time as men's sport and everything. And it's like, yeah, not enough.
Not really.
Like now I want to be in men's sports
Well,
also.
that's the craziest one. When the WNBA players won as much money as the NBA players. So the NBA actually generates extreme amounts of revenue. If somebody wrote a joke about it, the WNBA wanted what their just pay was, and so they owe $400 million because that's really how it balances out. It's like a losing. It's never been profitable.
Do you know what those things were like? Again, like it's like you're helping the one to hurt the many in so many things too. It's just like that video Shane showed me this years ago. The blind kid playing football. It's like a little boy playing Pop Warner football, and he's blind. And I'm like, who's this for? Like, you know,
Where
it's like
is your dad?
It's
Why
like,
is he letting you do that?
Who is this for?
Is it Daredevil?
And the kid gives a speech. In the video, he gives a speech, and he goes, a lot of people say blind people can't play football. And you're like, yeah, everybody. And you've never seen this video?
No.
This is maybe my favorite video on the internet. You know, blind football, Jamie, if you could. It's a 30-second video. The song they picked for this is the greatest thing in the world.
So here's the thing about like the WNBA. If you love the WNBA, that's great. There's a certain amount of people that love the WNBA. It's great that women have an avenue for professional sports, but you only get paid as much as people are willing to go to see you.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not willing to go see you, I'm sorry.
Because they want to see dunks.
This kid's blind.
It's that kind of confidence that continues to amaze people who watch Dylan play.
Oh, this is so crazy.
All of this, blind.
Oh, this is so crazy.
I can't see, and a lot of people think that a blind person can't play football.
But this courageous youngster has proven those people wrong.
I mean, you can't play football by smell. That's impossible. But it's like what you're actually doing is making this game not fun for anybody else out there.
Right. You can't hit the blind kid.
No one's going to hit the blind kid, and if you do, you're a dick.
You're just running around, so you have one less player, for real.
Yeah.
It's just like your team has decided to be on a handicap so you can get on the news.
We used to play basketball on a story every Wednesday, and Nate Bargatze one time brought his friend Nick Novicki, who's a little person, comedian, and he brought him, and we were like, oh, he's going to play? Like, all right, I guess. And we let him play, and every time he'd get the ball, the defense would lay off him and let him shoot, and he'd make it or miss it, but it was what it was. And then he started, when everyone would lay off on defense, instead of shooting the ball, he'd try to like run in and like do a layup, and we're letting him. And it's like until eventually Nate Bargatze, of all people, goes over and just cleaned his shot right into like the projects. He just sent away. He's like, we can't just let this happen the whole time. It's like it becomes not fun for everybody. It was when I was a kid, I remember very few stories, but there was a handful of like the girl that fought to get on the men's football team.
Yeah.
Football's such a violent sport that to let girls play it, they have to put them in lingerie. The lingerie football league is the only visible women playing football
around?
sport. I don't know, but I wanted to start taking like bets on it.
That was a thing, right? At one point in time.
Oh yeah, and they
What
hit
about
hard. They hit
roller
hard.
derby?
Never saw roller derby live.
Roller derby's
There's
like-
also buns in basketball where they have morbidly obese black chicks wear thongs and play basketball.
I haven't seen that.
Oh.
But roller derby's like
Let's
more
buy a team.
like a really hardcore lesbian type activity, right?
Oh yeah.
I would imagine.
I would assume, yeah.
Like really
Get the banging the chicks.
hardcore dyke bar girls, fucking weird tattoos.
And there's some element of wrestling to it also. It's like not fully real.
Very aggressive. You know, they slam into each other. They get fucking crazy.
With lingerie football, if you look up lingerie football's biggest hits, it's nuts what
Not
they've done.
lingerie, but I saw that they made a deal for something to air on ESPN2 this year. This is like a women's tackle football league.
Oh, really?
Championship game from last
Wait a
year.
minute, these are chicks?
Yeah.
Come on.
Go back.
Well,
that was a
one-
hell of a play.
Yeah.
Whoa. That's nuts.
30, 40 yard pass. Caught it.
Oh
What?
my god. That's crazy. Dude, they look pretty good.
Yeah.
This looks better than WNBA. Maybe they found it. Maybe women's tackle football is what's up. Because you're going to see a lot of tackles.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know if they get jacked up like they do in the NFL or anything. But
Well, they have to. They're running into each other.
Well, here's what's funny about this. These hits are pretty good, but they're wearing actual football pads. Lingerie football's biggest hits are they're wearing shoulder. Yeah, they're wearing shoulder pads and lingerie. They look like the Legion of Doom. They fucking used to come out.
Oh,
yeah,
this is it?
dude, they wail each other.
Did they really?
I
Oh
mean,
my
it's
God.
crazy.
Well,
And titties never come out.
That's great. They must have the thing strapped down. That's ouch.
I'll tell you, these pileups are crazy.
How much staph infection is coming out of these fucking things? I'm seeing a lot of staph. I'm seeing a lot of staph happen in the future with these ladies.
I mean, they blast each other into the
You're gonna
sides.
get scratched up bad. You're gonna get staph for sure. Whoa!
But I will
right
say,
up the butt.
the
This
fact
is-
you get 22 girls on a field who are not fighting the idea of like, oh, so we just got to dress like sluts to play football. They just go, yeah, we'll dress like sluts to play football.
Fuck it.
Why are they shamed? And buns and if you can find buns in basketball,
It's the same
we should
kinda
buy a
deal?
franchise, dude. I'll go halvesies with you.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh my God. There's a couple of BBLs in
Actually, see if you could find the buns and basketball leg break. There's a girl who fucking,
Oh,
she has
don't
a
show
Paul
me.
George like fucking leg break because she's just fat and she falls under the weight of her dribbling.
How bad is it?
It's pretty gnarly. It's not the worst I've ever seen. It's not Tom Segura's arm bad, but it's close. That was bad.
So bad.
It's because when he pulls it back and it's flopped. It's the Anderson Silva retracting the flopped leg. You know,
his arm still is fucked.
Tom's?
It's still not 100%.
Oh, I'd have to
His
assume.
grip is still fucked up. He had a bunch of nerve surgeries and shit.
Yeah, that was gnarly.
Dude,
And
imagine
imagine if anyone's
popped.
playing defense.
They're just going for a layup.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
Oh, no.
Whoop, dip. Whoop, dip.
Oh, God! It just snaps.
For buns and basketball, of all things.
Oh, it just snapped. Oh, my God.
Hey, I can tell it's going to rain tomorrow. How do you know that? Old buns and basketball injury.
Bro, those are bad injuries. The femur's a real bad one.
Can I take off my Trump
You do whatever you
one
want.
piece is really hot. Now I put this on.
You
to
put it on
indicate-
over your clothes, though.
I
That's
put it
the
on
problem.
over my shirt because I want the great
Where did you
job
get
so
it?
far.
Where'd you get that thing?
Out there. Every time I come, Jamie has a box of bizarre merch. Okay, let me tell you. I put this on to celebrate. I told Jamie because Hawk Tua has been pardoned.
Has he? Are you joking?
Finally. Julian Assange only took what did it take? 20
Wait a
years.
minute. Are you serious or are you joking?
I'm dead serious.
Not a pardon, but the SEC said no charges.
Same
Okay.
diff.
So is that because she didn't have anything to do with the crime, or is it because there wasn't a crime? What is it?
There's a crime. I don't think.
But is it a
yeah.
crime? Is it illegal? This is the question with all this like fake money stuff. This is why it's so confusing. If you have these meme coins and people are genuinely making millions of dollars from real meme coins, but it's kind of bullshit. It's kind of a fake money. And anybody can kind of make it and then sell it. Like there's no rules, right? Like you can dump it, right?
Did I tell you my buddy was they make those AI slaves that they stack to make like memes and coins? A lot of these guys are in Puerto Rico or like Dominican Republic because of taxes. Yeah. So the guys that make those coins, they refer to people who buy those coins as degenerate gamblers.
Right.
Because that's what they are. So that's all it is. I mean, you could say, why is the stock market less degenerate gambler than that? I guess because, I don't know why. Maybe you get backed up on certain investments by the government because there's a little bit more fake regulation. I don't know.
It is kind of crazy that it's based entirely on information and confidence about a company. And it can go up or down depending upon who like the CEO gets caught sleeping with or what new environmental laws
It sounds like
come out.
magical is what it sounds
It's
like.
crazy. And your whole, like in 2008 when everything just crashed, there was this dude who lived next to me. I had a lot next to my house in California, and this guy wanted to build a house. It was the saddest fucking thing, man. Because this was like in 2012, when we were living there, this dude was raking his lawn, and so I went over just to talk to him. There's no house there. And the dude would just like clean up brush and shit. He was like a responsible landowner, and he didn't even have a property, a house on it. And I said, "Are you gonna build here? Because I knew you were gonna build here a while back, but we never heard anything." And he's like, "I lost everything in the crash." He goes, "I saved up all my life working. I had this dream to build this house on this, and the property was really beautiful. It was like on the top of the hill, like looking down on this valley. It would have been an amazing place to like finally die."
Right.
You know, get to the end. This guy was old, man. And he was just like super bummed out.
This is
And
a
it's
real
just,
John Steinbeck story you got.
because it's all
told
just
me.
based. It's all
Yeah.
just based on, like, it's not gold, right? It fluctuates.
Yeah, no.
Companies can go under. The stock market can crash.
Yeah.
The money can disappear. It's like it's not stable. It's a wild gamble.
Some would call it Babylonian money magic.
But it's so
wouldn't, maybe,
nuts
but-
that's what our economy is based on, instead of
Why is
like
that so
actual
nuts?
assets.
What's
I
even
mean,
crazy about it?
but it's so crazy that you can do the meme coin thing, where you can just have like, okay, let's just have almost no rules and just go buck wild and have cock coin trading for $150 a coin.
It's a bunch of nerds that some of the nerds are smarter than the other nerds.
Yeah.
But they all think they're smart and they're not. That's how we get tricked, is because on Hot Tool Coin, ask Coffeezilla next time he's here, but I'm pretty sure the people that got scammed thought they were going to get out early. Like, they had been sold, and I know this has to be illegal. They were sold the idea that they were the initial, the early bird.
Early bird
whatever
investors,
the hell.
they can't pull the
And they
rug on
weren't.
you.
Yeah, and they
Right.
weren't, because they had gotten in on the ground floor. So that's why I think that if I had to guess where the big fraud is.
Right.
But she's like George Foreman with his grill. Like, George Foreman didn't make a grill.
Right.
I told you,
She's
Howie.
22 years old. That girl probably knows almost nothing
She was
about
jack
the economy.
shit.
I know almost nothing, and she probably knows less than me.
Howie Mandel's son-in-law is the guy behind Hot Tool Coin.
What?
I told you last time. His name's DJ something.
Did you?
DJ at LA or.
So much information when I talk to you. When I get a text message from you, I always take a deep breath.
I know. Well, you
Okay, here we
sometimes. Yeah.
What do we got?
By the way, that thing you're saying, were you just describing the market right now?
Yeah.
I was just chuckling like, oh yes, but Social Security is the biggest Ponzi scheme. Not that shit. Social Security is the worst. That's the one that we got to tackle. That scheme. Not all the other things, such as what you just described pretty well, I think.
What do? You get in the underwear
That's how they were
business.
recruiting. They were recruiting from the Victoria's Secret modeling, and
Right.
Jeffrey Epstein was claiming that he was a rep. But do you know about the CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch that went down for running a sex trafficking ring?
Yeah.
He was Leslie Wexner's guy. When Leslie Wexner, he bought Abercrombie and Fitch in like 1990, maybe 91, 89. And then one of the first things he did was he put that dude into position as CEO. That was Leslie Wexner's dude. And he becomes the CEO, and he's gay, and he likes really hot young male models. And he started running a male sex trafficking ring out of Abercrombie and Fitch. So Leslie Wexner, this dude who is a self-proclaimed possessed by a demon.
What?
Yeah. Whitney has a whole chapter where she goes into this article that was done by a mainstream news source like 10, 20 years ago, where they're interviewing Leslie Wexner and asking him about how he came to power and what's his secret. It's called his D-Book, D-Y-B-U-K, and you can read about this on Wikipedia as well. And he describes in his own words that he's possessed by a D-Book, which is like a Yiddish word for an evil demon that drives him for more and more and more and more. This is in his own words.
Is he being hyperbolic? Is
A
he
little
joking
bit.
around? Like,
No.
oh, I'm possessed by a demon that just wants more and more. I just want to be successful.
No, I mean I wasn't in the room, but I assume based upon the wording and how it's put, I assume
let's
it's like
find it. We'll
it's like
find it. I want to read that.
it's like a billionaire. I mean, it's in the text. It's directly quoted in the text in One Nation Under Blackmail, actually, which is in that backpack.
One
and
Nation Under Blackmail?
One Nation Under
Is that
Blackmail by
Whitney's
Whitney Webb.
book?
Highly recommend, but it's super dense. It's a hard read. I've read it 3 times now, and I still am taking notes and trying to look things up to understand it because she's just so researched. And it's things like this, where she's gone back to the original article where they were interviewing him, and he's just like a CEO. So they're just asking him, "What's your secret to success?" And he's like, "I'm possessed by I have a drive for more." And he chose the word "D-Book," which is a Yiddish word.
This is from New
Yeah.
York Magazine interview. we
That's
gave.
exactly the source.
It says, and now perhaps it's time to reintroduce Leslie Wexner's D-Book, the demon that always wakes up in the morning with Wexner and tweaks and pulls at him. When he was a boy, his father called it tummel, a churning. So he feels molten and unformed, pricked by these spiritual pins and needles. He met this demon again when he was 40 and already worth $500 million. When he climbed the mountain in front of the house in Vale and almost froze to death and decided to change his life. This demon he calls terminal Schvilkes, which makes him wander from house to house, repeating the pattern of his childhood on a luxurious scale, wanting more, swallowing companies larger than his own. It is precisely the reason he's $1 billion and doesn't stop at, say, $5 million and a new Mercedes every other year, and what he calls normal life. Bridge on Wednesdays and bar mitzvahs on Saturdays, and the Winding Hollow Country Club in Columbus, which is like Buckingham Palace to him when he was 15.
Yeah, so that's just to point out that, like, A, he's a fucking weird dude. He's a sketchy dude. He's running 2 sex trafficking rings out of his companies that he doesn't know anything about. And simultaneously, he founded, the Wexner Foundations and the Leslie Wexner Heritage Foundation. Those are also very interesting and controversial. They're very tied to Israel because he is one of the foremost Israeli philanthropists, despite being an American. But he founded what was called the Mega Group, which is essentially it was not disclosed for a long time. It was secret. And it is a group of Jewish billionaires that get together on behalf of global Judaism, which is not uncommon, and there's nothing wrong with that if they're not committing crimes. But they would get together and meet, and it's people like Leslie Wexner, Charles Bronfman, the list is, we could look it up. And that group, it is unclear if we have proof that they were conducting espionage, but there are all of them have ties to organized crime through various elements, like the Bronfmans were rum runners, as one example, that were then involved in the mob. Leslie Wexner is involved in these trafficking rings, etc. And that group seems to have been directly associated with Jeffrey Epstein. And she's one that she shows all the primary sources and, like, lays it all out. This is what we know, and this is where the source came from, and this is what it said, and these are possible explanations for it. Here's 1 or 2 or 3 explanations of what it might be, but we don't really know because this is as far as the evidence goes. And so Leslie Wexner is just one where there's all this swirling evidence all around him that in order for him to not be aware of what's going on and to not have been an active part of this is damn near unbelievable in my eyes, allegedly.
That's well covered. You did a good job of covering your bases there.
Yeah, which I've learned to do because I started on TikTok where you can't even say certain words or you'll get taken off of TikTok. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is also fast.
Yeah.
What do? You get in the underwear
That's how they're
business.
recruiting. They're recruiting from the Victoria's Secret modeling, and Jeffrey Epstein was claiming that he was a rep. But do you know about the CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch that went down for running a sex trafficking ring?
Yeah.
He was Leslie Wexner's guy. When Leslie Wexner, he bought Abercrombie & Fitch in like 1990, maybe 91, 89. And then one of the first things he did was he put that dude into position as CEO. That was Leslie Wexner's dude. And he becomes the CEO, and he's gay, and he likes really hot young male models. And he started running a male sex trafficking ring out of Abercrombie & Fitch. So Leslie Wexner, this dude who is a self-proclaimed possessed by a demon.
What?
Yeah. Whitney has a whole chapter where she goes into this article that was done by a mainstream news source like 10, 20 years ago where they're interviewing Leslie Wexner and asking him about how he came to power and what's his secret. It's called his D-Book, D-Y-B-U-K, and you can read about this on Wikipedia as well. And he describes in his own words that he's possessed by a D-Book, which is like a Yiddish word for an evil demon that drives him for more and more and more and more. Is in his own words.
Is he being hyperbolic? Is he
little
joking
bit.
around? Like,
No.
oh, I'm possessed by a demon that just wants more and more. I just want to be successful.
No, I wasn't in the room, but I assume based upon the wording and how it's put, I assume
let's
it's like,
find it.
yeah,
We'll
it's like
find it. I want to read that.
it's like a billionaire. It's in the text. It's directly quoted in the text in One Nation Under Blackmail, actually, which is in that backpack.
One Nation Under Blackmail?
One Nation Under
Is that
Blackmail by
Whitney's
Whitney
book?
Webb. Highly recommend, but it's super dense. It's a hard read. I've read it 3 times now, and I still am taking notes and trying to look things up to understand it because she's just so researched. And it's things like this, where she's gone back to the original article where they were interviewing him, and he's just like a CEO. So they're just asking him, "What's your secret to success?" And he's like, "I'm possessed by I have a drive for more." And he chose the word D-Book, which is a Yiddish word.
This is from New York Magazine interview.
That's exactly the source.
He says, and now perhaps it's time to reintroduce Leslie Wexner's D-Book, the demon that always wakes up in the morning with Wexner and tweaks and pulls at him. When he was a boy, his father called it tummel, a churning. So he feels molten and unformed, pricked by these spiritual pins and needles. He met this demon again when he was 40 and already worth $500 million. when he climbed the mountain in front of the house in Vale and almost froze to death and decided to change his life. This demon he calls terminal schwilkes, which makes him wander from house to house, repeating the pattern of his childhood on a luxurious scale, wanting more, swallowing companies larger than his own. It is precisely the reason he's $1 billion and doesn't stop at, say, $5 million and a new Mercedes every other year, and what he calls normal life. Bridge on Wednesdays and bar mitzvahs on Saturdays, and the Winding Hollow Country Club in Columbus, which is like Buckingham Palace to him when he was 15.
Yeah. So that's just to point out that, like, A, he's a fucking weird dude. He's a sketchy dude. He's running 2 sex trafficking rings out of his companies that he doesn't know anything about. And simultaneously, he founded, the Wexner Foundations and the Leslie Wexner Heritage Foundation. Those are also very interesting and controversial. They're very tied to Israel because he is one of the foremost Israeli philanthropists, despite being an American. But he founded what was called the Mega Group, which is essentially it was not disclosed for a long time. It was secret. And it is a group of Jewish billionaires that get together on behalf of global Judaism, which is not uncommon, and there's nothing wrong with that if they're not committing crimes. But they would get together and meet, and it's people like Leslie Wexner, Charles Bronfman, the list is, we could look it up. And that group, it is unclear if we have proof that they were conducting espionage, but there are all of them have ties to organized crime through various elements, like the Bronfmans were rum runners, as one example, that were then involved in the mob. Leslie Wexner's involved in these trafficking rings, etc. And that group seems to have been directly associated with Jeffrey Epstein. And she's one that she shows all the primary sources and, like, lays it all out. This is what we know, and this is where the source came from, and this is what it said, and these are possible explanations for it. Here's 1 or 2 or 3 explanations of what it might be, but we don't really know because this is as far as the evidence goes. And so Leslie Wexner is just one where there's all this swirling evidence all around him that in order for him to not be aware of what's going on and to not have been an active part of this is damn near unbelievable in my eyes, allegedly.
That's well covered. You did a good job of covering your bases there.
Yeah, which I've learned to do because I started on TikTok where you can't even say certain words or you'll get taken off of TikTok. So.
Right. Yeah. Which is also fast.
Yeah.
If he wasn't personally a pervert, it wouldn't work.
Oh, not a chance. No.
Like, think about, like, the guy gets arrested for having sex with underage girls or getting them to do happy endings or wherever he did. So he gets arrested, and then the real weird thing is that he just gets out and gets, like, house arrest.
Yep.
And he gets, like, a little slap on the wrist, and then he's back in action with all these rich people again.
Yep.
Like, really rich, influential people. Like, Bill Gates is hanging out with him after he's already been arrested and convicted. Like, that's bananas.
Yep. But to your point about them...
But he's got to already beefed up. He can't be
100%.
like a straight-edge, regular guy with a family and children that is just evil. No, you got to have him in on the thing. So if you got a guy you know is already a freak, you know he's already a nut, and he's already, like, doing...
That's how you recruit him.
Blow and hookers all the time, and maybe he's been caught with a few underage girls.
Well, when you study where he came from and how he got plucked from the Dalton School and then got put into Bear Stearns and then got put through Bear Stearns and then got put into money management, like...
It was teaching at one point in time.
It was teaching at the Dalton School, and then he was a banker at Bear Stearns, which he conveniently left when this big scandal broke that implicated him and the director, Goldstein, that had hired him and had been helping him up. And then he left and kind of took the fall and took the dirt with him. And then he went into the arms running businesses, which is where he met Maxwell, Daddy Maxwell, not daughter Maxwell, and Adnan Khashoggi and Lease and all these other arms traffickers. And that's where he got into those. So it's like you walk slowly into these worlds. And as they're doing that, I'm imagining they're taking tabs on him, like, what kind of guy is this and what's he into? And he's working with arms traffickers. And some of those arms traffickers were famous for blackmail. Like Adnan Khashoggi, he was famous for having his yacht filled up with cameras and giving his arms deals everything they could ever want while he's selling weapons to them, and he's got his whole yacht wired up with cameras. Trump later bought that yacht, which is super interesting.
Whoa.
Do you know about that?
No.
So Trump, check this out. And I'm not claiming that Trump is in on everything. It's a very complex thing here, but Trump's history is pretty weird. He bought the Plaza Hotel, which is where the Blue Suite parties that blackmailed J. Edgar Hoover happened.
Okay.
I could talk about the Epstein stuff for days and start all kinds of trouble for your podcasting.
Well, I think
but
that trouble's supposed to be coming out publicly.
I don't think it's gonna.
Wasn't there? So the
It's not gonna
FBI in
come
New
out.
York guy had to step down, right?
Yeah.
They were saying they're withholding files.
Yeah.
So the Pam Bondi's office said that they just got thousands of files.
Allegedly. Yeah. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
I've been saying that I'm like Charlie Brown with Lucy in the football.
Yeah.
You know, when she pulls the football away, every time he thinks he's going to get to kick it, and he goes falling on his ass.
Yeah.
That's
'Cause,
how
like,
it feels.
You haven't read Whitney Webb's books, have you?
No.
You really should. But her research on Jeffrey Epstein is looking backwards at the history of organized crime, the history of Epstein, and it paints a very, we know very well who he worked for, and we know who he was associated with. She has primary sources with pages of sources cited about who put him where, who he interacted with, who said what about him, who claimed what about his life, and it's 2 full books, and it's very well sourced, with primary sources cited all the way throughout. And so it's we don't actually really need the Epstein files to know what was going on. They'll hopefully include a lot of new details,
But don't we need it for rock solid proof? Like, don't we need the
So take Leslie Wexner that we were
flight
talking
logs.
about earlier. No, we already have the flight logs.
Do we have all of them?
Unredacted. All
Really?
of them. Yeah.
All of them. So
well,
do we know?
theoretically, the ones we know of.
And do we have flight logs with destinations?
Yeah.
So we
Oh,
know.
yeah.
So we know who went to the island.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're all there, and you can read them online. They're on archive.org, as well as other places. But I think that a lot of Epstein's targets were willing. I think that a lot of them, because I think that we're talking, it's not just Jeffrey Epstein, it's organized crime as a network. He's just an employee of organized crime.
Right.
And I think that a lot of those people are basically saying, yeah, I want into the club. Because if you are like a Reid Hoffman, or allegedly, if you're one of those guys and you want more contracts or you want more deals, allegedly. And let's be clear, just because I say something on Joe's podcast does not mean that Joe agrees with me, CNN. Thank you. Because I'm a crazy and I got all kinds of theories about Epstein. But I think that a lot of them were willing, because I think a lot of them are, if you're sick enough to rape a child, on Jeffrey Epstein's island, you're sick enough to want into that club.
Well, for sure, throughout history, there have been pedophiles. That's a fact. For sure, some pedophiles get to prominent positions of power. That's a fact, right?
Yeah. And the traits
Jimmy Savile,
the traits that do the same,
Jimmy Savile
exactly.
in England, that
Yeah.
way. And that should put it out to bed for anybody.
Prince Andrew, Bill
Sandusky.
Gates, allegedly.
I don't know about him. I never heard that. But Sandusky, I've heard.
You never heard about Bill Gates?
I didn't know he was into kids.
Oh, dude. He's one of Epstein's closest confidants. And
Here's the thing about the Epstein thing. Were they all underage? Were some
no,
of them?
not at all. No, it's very
Right.
complex.
Right.
And
So some of them were in their
were
20s. Like one girl who was
Absolutely.
complaining, or I shouldn't say complaining. That's
Yeah.
very mild. One girl who alleging that she was 20 at the time. She was saying.
Yeah.
So just because someone has been to the island and has been compromised, right, doesn't
just 'cause they've been to the
necessarily
island?
mean that they've been compromised with underage people. But I think there's a specific group that wants underage people.
Oh, 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say this is not a conspiracy theory. It has been that way throughout history. There
All
are
of history.
many, many, many conspiracies that have been uncovered, and criminal investigations have found that people were trafficking children. It's been done. So this is not like vampires.
No.
We're not talking about werewolves.
Child trafficking rings get exposed and brought down around the world relatively frequently, at least once a year, but they
So-
usually don't make big news because they're usually not like Epstein.
We know there are pedophiles. That's a real
Yeah.
thing. We know there are psychos who get very wealthy and
Yeah.
want specific things.
Yeah.
Look, there's people that drink rhino horn tea.
Exactly.
Right? Why do they drink rhino horn tea? Because the rhino is so endangered, it's so gangster to have
Just the
rhino
elite
horn
experience.
Exactly.
You
the
want
elite experience.
And what you're talking about is this. It's such an important concept. Is that some people if you wanted to pay for an underage prostitute, you can pay for that. There are women that would be prostitutes underage. The people that we're talking about in the Epstein files that wanted underage girls, specifically because they weren't all underage. Some of them wanted overage girls. Some of them were just scientists. They weren't all compromised. But the ones that wanted underage girls, they specifically want what they couldn't have. Because if you wanted sex that you're allowed to have, you just wanted a young girl, you could just go pay for that. What Epstein was doing is he was recruiting girls that were from American families and kind of tricking them and coercing them. They wanted a girl they wanted the experience of coercing. Some of these people, not all of them, want the experience of I am doing this to a girl that I am coercing, I am manipulating, or I'm just straight up being physically violent to get this thing. Because if you wanted a willing 16-year-old, those do exist.
Eric Weinstein was highlighting this to me once. He goes, I think there are people out there that can facilitate experiences for discrete clients, and that it's very valuable. Yeah. Like, look at the guy who gave Epstein that house in Manhattan. He gave him
You mean
the
Leslie
guy
Wexner?
Yeah, the guy from Victoria's Secret.
Dude.
He gave him a $60 million mansion.
He did way more than that. He
You're
signed
so
his entire
cool.
power of attorney to him.
You're so cool. I'm going to give you a house.
No, he gave him the keys to the entire castle of all of Victoria's Secret and Abercrombie and Fitch and all of L Brand.
There was going to be a drug shipment coming in, and my crew was going to be delivering it to another crew, and we needed protection. And we did it in Brockton, and several outlaws hopped in on it. The issue was this, at least one of the big issues. Pretty much that case, I had a great time. Yes, it's violent, and my mentality was changing. There is a podcast it's a series that's going to be coming out with the book, and they actually interviewed one of the task force officers who was over me on that case of the outlaws. And I remember him calling me. He's like, "Hey, what can I say?" I said, "Tell him the truth." I said, "I want to know what you were thinking. I know what I was thinking." And it was really, really surreal to hear him talking about he could see my personality changing. He could see, and like the FBI office might be saying, we want him to patch. And he was over here fighting going, hell no, we're getting everything we need now. If he patches, then they can order him to do shit. And it was just really cool to hear that. But essentially for the case, it was me, an FBI case agent, and 2 task force officers. We had Detective Joe Cummins from Brockton PD, Sergeant Higginbottom from the Massachusetts State Troopers, and then an agent with the FBI, and that was it. I mean, they would add some here and there, but for 2 years, that was it. It was us. So now we get to this point to where we're like, man, let's do this drug protection. And the assistant United States attorney was like, hey, if you're going to be at the clubhouse, or did they talk about this at the clubhouse? And we're like, yeah. And he goes, well, that would be awesome if we could get that recorded, because it helps, right, to show what they're planning on doing. So the night before the deal's supposed to happen, they don't know it, but we've got 40 kilos of real cocaine and 1,000 pounds of weed, real. So you can imagine SWAT teams are involved. Because, can you imagine if the FBI lost 40 kilos of cocaine and Brockton and Taunton's are all wide awake for the next week, you know? Or there's ODs, you know, because that's a liability. Did you say you had 40 kilos? There's only 39 here. I don't know. No, I'm just messing with you. But, so they say, hey, Joe Doggs calls me. It's night at church. He says, hey, I need you to come to the clubhouse. I'm like, all right, cool. And of course, I'm thinking, I'm type A. I'm Scott Payne. I got this. Let's go do this, man. These are my boys. I've been doing this a year and a half. And I went into the clubhouse. And what I couldn't see, and I won't say where the recording devices were at because that's trade craft. But let's just say I had a video and recording device hidden somewhere in my clothing. I had a completely audio recording device somewhere else on me. And I had a transmitter, batteries, so the team could listen in. And I went into the clubhouse like normal. But what you can't see, if you go back and you watch the video, is if I'm facing this way and I'm shooting the shit with you and this is the bar and you're laughing at my jokes like always, when I would turn my head to look this way, it's still filming. And I didn't see it because I turned my head. They go stone face. And I missed it. I didn't see it. I do know that when I got to the clubhouse, I knock on the door, I'm knocking on the door, I'm like, you know, Joe Doggs props me, hey, we're not ready yet. And I'm going, well, why the hell did you tell me to come? I was being smart. I'm like, what's the deal? Why would you say come if you're not ready? I didn't pick anything up. So I go in, and for the listeners that may not know, at least in this clubhouse, if you're not a patch member, which I wasn't, they offered it several times. They wanted me to patch, but I'm with what I said for the task force officer. I said the same thing. I'm like, look, if I'm a probate and they say, get your shit text, we're going to go jack this dude, I kind of got to go. I mean, if I don't do it, I'm either getting kicked out or beat down or whatever. Right. But being a high-ranking member of an international theft ring that they're making money off of, it's a little different. Right? We were getting everything we wanted. So I go in the clubhouse. I missed that. I also missed that in the back, one of them, Chocolate Scott, it looks like he's dancing to the song that's playing, but he's warming up, and I missed that. And then my second closest contact, Clothesline, says, "Hey, Tex, you got a minute?" And I said, "Yeah." And we walked. I've been in that clubhouse, I don't know how many times, Joe, but there's one door I'd never been in. And that's the door we went in. And it was a very tight stairwell into, you can say a basement, but that's being very, I'm stretching it. Because I could probably touch the wall on both sides and I couldn't stand up straight. So they bring me down in there, they brandish their weapons. One of them walks in behind me, he's on the steps, so they got their pistols. And my friend says, "Hey, there's a lot of shit going on. It's my job to take care of my brothers. I need you to write down your full name, your address, your phone number, all kinds of stuff. And I need you to take off all your clothes. I need to check you for a while." Now, here's the problem. Had I not been wired, embarrassing, yes. Naked with a bunch of men around you in a cold basement, yeah, that would have been bad, but it would have been no threat. But I was wired to the hilt. And so you think, man, do you fight? Do you try to get out? Well, there's already 2 or 3 there. I'm probably going to do some Tommy boy shit, knock myself out on the joist as soon as I start trying to fight. And then upstairs, there's 10 more outlaws. And that door, what I was getting to earlier, I didn't say, if you're not a patch member, you can't touch the door. That door has more than one deadbolt on it. They had welded metal hooks to the frame and put one of those like shipyard metal bars across. So from a breacher standpoint, it's a fortified door. It might be easier to breach the wall next to it. So we're down there in the basement. And when I go to write my name down, I forgot my middle name. And that's because I was having an oh crap moment. I had an adrenaline dump. Same thing as cops in shootouts, military in shootouts, somebody in a car wreck, first time, everything. When you're having that adrenaline dump, everything slows down. You get auditory exclusion. So everything you're hearing sounds like you're underwater. It's going whoosh, whoosh. It's slow, like you're talking to me like this. Time dilation. Your eyes are clicking. You look and everything's in frames. Everything's slowing down. Your hamstrings get really rubbery. You feel your heart beating. I mean, you feel everything pulsing. And what seems like 10, 15 minutes is probably 30 seconds. And that happens. That's an adrenaline dump. So that was happening. And I forgot my middle name. And I'm going, Scott Calloway, Scott Calloway, Scott Calloway. I'll start going through this damn Rolodex in my head. I'm going, Scott Calloway, Scott Calloway. I'm going, Scott Joseph. I go, no, damn it. That was my middle name for another alias, you know. And I don't realize that I do a distraction technique or something to try to get more intelligence. I would have never known I said it, would have never agreed I said it had I not seen it in the recording. But I turn and I go, "And what else do you need?" And by the way, you got a bass line of me now, my voice. It did not sound like this on that recording. My throat was tight. The octaves, I mean, it was very higher than normal. And I'm like not even enunciating that well. I'm like, "And what else do you need?" And they're like, "What?" I go, "My name and what else?" Well, now I hear them scream up and they go, "What else do you need for that website?" So now I know, oh, they're going to Google me. Back then there was who'sarat.com, things like that. So I'm gathering that evidence or intelligence. And then I remember my middle name was, my initials were SAC because I'm an idiot and I thought it was funny because the SAC is the head of an FBI division and I knew I was never going to be one. So, so I made my initials SAC. So I remember my name's Scott Andrew Calloway. And then I write that down. Well, now I take off all my clothes. I take off my outer clothing, all my shirts. I take my boots off, and I basically pull my underwear and jeans down around my ankles. So pretty much naked from ankles. I mean, I'm definitely naked from ankles up. And he starts searching me. And I'm having an oh shit moment, and he's trying to talk to me, and like we've known each other for a year and a half. So I'm not saying it out loud, but if you saw what my face was saying, what my face is saying and asking is, tell me I'm okay. Is this okay? Well, Clothesline, because we were tight, hits me back with a face look that's like everything's all right. This is just procedure. However, he didn't know that I'm an undercover agent and I'm wired. So that adds a whole other issue. So he searches me. I think we're done. One point, he even tells me, he says, trust me, if somebody accused me of being a Fed, I'd probably smash him in the fucking mouth. And I said, those are his words. And I immediately said, well, I'm not happy. I'll tell you what I did do. I did look to make sure there was no plastic on the floor. And I've had people ask me, what does that mean? And I go, well, listen, if you're in the criminal underbelly of society and there's plastic on the floor and they're telling you to walk on it, Yeah, it's to clean up the blood. I didn't see that. I saw a rope, I saw pistols, and I knew I didn't have a chance in hell of getting out of there in one piece. So he finishes, and he's saying something. He goes, wouldn't you be suspect if somebody comes to your town and starts doing all this shit with you? I said, yeah, if you came to me. I didn't come to you guys. Y'all called me over. Nobody has to do this shit. I'm like, what do we, nobody has to do anything, right? And I think we're done. So I pull my pants back up, and I think we're done, and he grabs a piece of clothing of mine, and he starts kneading it and going through it. Now, this is 2005 to 2007-ish, so technology today is way better than it was then, just like technology is, but let's just say this. Had he done this down my entire piece of clothing, he would have felt something. And he says, as a joke, when he starts, he goes, hey, I'm not going to find anything in here I don't want to, like some naked pictures of my old lady. And he laughs, and his laugh is like, and my laugh is like, And then I'm watching him go down this piece of clothing, and he's doing this, and he's doing, and you can hear, again, I don't know how I do it, but on the recording, you can hear me go, an audible sigh, because I'm like watching it. I'm going, what am I going to do? So here's how it ends. He doesn't find it. Wow. Almost. I mean, like, very, very close. And by the way, that first adrenaline dump, I've come back up, and now I've got another adrenaline dump. And now I've come in, I'm like, son of a, it's peaks and valleys. And everybody that I've taught this to or spoke about it to always ask, they're like, man, what would you have said? And I'll tell you, I had two responses. Because I'm a jovial idiot, my first response, if he would have said, what is this? I would have probably said, I don't know, some naked pictures of the old lady to try to buy myself some time, maybe make him quit searching. The only other thing I had, Joe, is, and I remember it like it was yesterday, I would have said, the gig is up. I'm an undercover FBI agent, and I can walk out of here and we can see each other in court, or all hell's going to break loose. Here's the issue, because I get a sweep. That would have been a bluff on my part, because as far as I knew, every time I was in that clubhouse, my cover team could never hear me. For whatever reasons, because somebody's going to say it's tradecraft, but again, this is 2005 to 2008, but they could never really hear me in that clubhouse. And I make it out. I end up going out with Scott Town and Joe Dogs that night. But what happens is I am legitimately pissed off, because now my adrenaline's coming back down, and I'm taking it personal. I shouldn't. I'm undercover as an FBI agent. I'm not really Scott Calloway. I'm kind of.
But you're so deep in the role.
Well, and it's really me, kind of. I mean, that's the whole thing. I never will spar off of who I really am in life. Right. A pedophile? Yeah. You hire me to kill somebody? No, I'm not going to ingratiate with you. I'm a stone cold killer. But I'm hanging with you for 2 years or a year and a half or whatever. Yeah, the jokes are kind of the same. Right. So I'm pissed. And at one point, I'm telling Joe Dogs, I'm like, you know what, man? F all you sons. I said, y'all show up tomorrow? I said, I'm stripping all y'all in the damn parking lot. You know, I was just, boy, and they were nice. They let me vent my stuff. Well, that night, when I went to turn in my equipment at an undisclosed location, probably 3, 4, or 5 in the morning, to the case team, what I found out was this. The shift started with Sergeant Higginbottom, everybody called him Higgy, and Joe, the detectives. The detective. These guys are awesome, phenomenal law enforcement officers. Although I think their love language is yelling. Maybe that's my southern thing mixing with the northeast thing, but they told me, they said, Scott, we heard you in there. And I'm like, what? When I had that first interaction with Joe Dogs, they are very street smart, they're very good investigators, and they have been working this group forever. Something that happened in that first interaction made their spidey senses, or the Holy Spirit, if you're a believer, say, something's not right. They had pulled close enough, they heard everything. They put on their vest, they suited up, and because they'd been in that clubhouse before and knew that door system, their plan was to drive the van into the cinder block wall next to the door.
Oh my God.
Just to smash that, you know. Sometimes I'm teaching this, I'll joke about it and say it probably would have killed me because I was in the basement, you know. reverse, back up. You're so damn heavy. But at that moment, I was scared to death, right? So they tell me what happened was they pulled close enough, they heard everything. They're suiting up. They have radioed now, because it's kind of the beginning of the shift. They've radioed now back to Boston. Everybody that's working that night is now blue lights and siren all the way down to hauling ass to Taunton, Massachusetts. So I say this in a jovial way, but the case agent was actually a good friend of mine. We went through the FBI Academy together. And that night, again, I'm still shell-shocked. He says, man, when I was coming down the highway with my blue lights and sirens on, I felt like I was in there with you. And I looked at him and I said, you weren't. I said, because I was looking for any friendly face I could find in that damn hole.
It's just a weird time for thinking and for discourse and for deciding what team you're on. It's like everyone's scared and scrambling, you know, do we go red or blue? And it's just the whole country's in this like weird state of disarray.
And it's very tribal, and you see it now as well. You know, now that the right is in political power, a lot of the people who kind of made their bones challenging the excesses of the left, they're afraid to say anything about the right as well, even though there's things to say. Like, I don't know if you followed the Signal group thing.
Yeah, I did. I don't know enough about it, but it does seem like there's people that suspected it was a setup. That guy was added to the chat on purpose.
Well, I think
is that true?
I don't think so. I think the guy who added him has basically said, like, it was our mistake. And
so it was just a mistake.
I don't think the investigation has been done to say definitively, but I think the White House said, we're looking into this. But Tulsi, I think, said it was a mistake. I think Mike Waltz said it was a mistake.
That's such a crazy mistake.
Yeah.
That's such a checks and balances mistake, like double check.
Yes.
It's like, you know, when you go on the road, like,
Yeah.
do I have my toothbrush?
Yeah.
Do I have my underwear? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I even make a note on my phone now. I'm like, I'm too stupid. I always forget something. I was like,
Yeah.
fuck, why this?
You know, it's kind of like adding your ex-girlfriend to the boys' WhatsApp group.
Some of the memes have been incredible.
That's exactly what it's like. Dude, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it's like. That's such a perfect analogy. Like, you fucking idiot. They're all on the phone afterwards. What the fuck, bro? Like, you know, Pete Hegseth swears.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, what the fuck, bro?
You know she's gonna talk.
Well, how about the fact that they said that they didn't share any information about weapons, or like, what was the exact quotes? What did they say? So what they were basically doing was explaining how some shit was going to go down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were
Was it in Yemen?
they were debating how to do the strikes, whether to do them. There was some debate about that initially, and then initially this journalist, I think he's editor-in-chief of the Atlantic, I think. He
Which is he is like the worst guy to get this information
well,
to.
absolutely,
He
right?
was probably jerking off the whole time, salivating, like, yes!
Yeah. If you
Rock
had to
hard.
pick somebody, that is not who you pick, right?
He
But
must
you know,
be so pumped.
you know, we had an investigative journalist on the show, and we haven't released the episode yet, but as part of our after the show questions, he mentioned something which is, he said, I'm going from memory here, so Francis, correct me, but basically that Signal had been installed on government devices under the previous administration. So it may be the case that that guy's number had been pre-installed during that time. And because of that, the mistake was then made to add him to the group. So we don't know exactly what happened, but at the same time, what I'm saying is, like, the White House admitted it, and then they started having a go at the journalist. Like, that is not his fucking fault that you added him to the group, right? Do you know what I mean?
Not at all. What's he supposed to do? Tell you, hey guys, I've done that before. Hey guys, I think you sent this text to the wrong dude.
Yeah, yeah. A journalist is never going to do that, and that's not his job to do that either.
No.
You know,
Listen, that's one of those things that just happens accidentally.
Yeah.
But you can't have that happen when you're fucking planning bombs.
Agreed.
When you're planning war. Like,
Agreed.
First of all, it's so crazy that the government doesn't have its own completely safe app.
They do.
What is it?
I think it's called a skiff or something like that. It's a special place where you go.
No, but that's a room. I mean an app.
Oh,
I
you mean an app? All right.
Why did they not have some encrypted super government app? You telling me that you couldn't get like a license from Signal to use the code? The government throws them. They like all these billions that are just, they're finding billions all over them. There's like billions they've cut. Like, how many fucking billions has Elon cut just from waste?
A
Just
trillion, he
waste.
says.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and people aren't celebrating it. It's
weird.
Well, put it this way, Joe. Until relatively recently, if not still, we use faxes in UK government.
Wow, that's crazy.
A lot of
I think we got you one better. I think when people retire from, what is it where they have to retire, where they have to write it down on paper and then it's stored in a vault?
in a mine. It's stored in a mine.
Yeah.
Social Security?
It's on paper.
It's in a mine.
I love that press conference as well because it's like Brett Baer from Fox interviewing Elon and like 7 other ASPI guys, and they're all just rattling off numbers. It's 10,000 filing cabinets, 400,000 paper documents. But when you look at it, it basically hasn't changed since the 1950s.
Yeah. I'm distracted by Brett Baer's hair. It's so beautiful. If I had that kind of hair, I would be so happy. I'm so happy with myself. You can't see any scalp anywhere. It's just all hair. It's beautiful. It's like if you wanted to like put a wig on a bald guy, like you would make it like that. Like, bro, I'm gonna make you hot.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom has got incredible hair. Terrible policies, but amazing hair.
The government stores key retirement paperwork in a converted mine.
But you know
That's
what's
crazy? The limestone mine is real in the Department of Government Efficiency's crosshairs. That is so insane. So now someone has to go in there and take all that stuff that's on paper in the mine and put it in a computer.
They're saying they're going to do it in 2 months. Digitize that in 2 months.
Adderall is great. It's great. I'm so happy someone invented it. That's, I mean,
Low-level autism plus Adderall.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
I'm not accusing anyone of anything.
Yeah.
I just want to say, shout out to whoever made Adderall. Things get done.
Yeah.
They do things get done, but this is kind of the greatest pushback against like high-level conspiracy theories. You know when people go, bro, they control everything. You're like, dude, they have a mind where they store stuff. Come on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. It's like the perfect. Everybody thinks that everything is a giant plot, and some of it is just sheer incompetence and just years and years and years of monotony. You know, where it just like the same stupid life over and over again, no oversight, rampant corruption everywhere. All the lobbyists are rich as fuck. I mean, look at this file line. Look at this. This is all the data. How many times a day do you get bombarded by the whole Bill Burr thing?
When it gets into the family and people I haven't talked to for 20 years.
Then you have to break character and tell the truth?
No, you know, the thing is, this is what's crazy. Okay. You want the whole setup story?
Sure.
I could be quick
Sure.
Where I take my podcast is in one of Howie Mandel's buildings, and he has another building in this area. So I was working on something, and I was supposed to go on Howie's show that day. And they said, Howie will meet you out in the street or something for whatever reason. So I go out in the street, and the first thing Howie says to me when he sees me, he goes, "Here comes Bill Burr." And I go, "You too? Like, do you know this story?" And he said, "No, I don't know about it." And I said, "You know what? Heck with it. I'm just going to tell it on your show, so don't ask me anymore." And I went on the show, and I told the story about how 10 years ago my stepmother came to me and said, "Do you know who Bill Burr is?" I'd never heard of Bill, didn't know who he was, because I don't really consume much, popular culture. I had no idea he was a famous comedian. He could have been the lawnmower guy. Looked up Bill. First thing I saw was like, oh my God, he looks just like Daddy. When I was 18 years old at an IHOP on my 18th birthday, my father told me, "You have a half-brother that I sired at the same time as you, whose name is Bill." So suddenly these facts come together, my mother telling me these stories. I talked to my dad subsequently about it, and he was very cagey about it. And when I said, "Why won't you tell me where this person is or who this person is?" he said, "I'm trying to protect you." So when my stepmother had told me, it kind of made sense, like, well, if my half-brother is this super famous comedian, my dad, in a way, wouldn't want me to know because he wouldn't want me to feel like I was number two because Bill's so famous. I know it sounds crazy, right?
You think that's why he's trying to protect you?
Well, I don't know. So fast forward to Howie saying something on the street. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to say something. And I swear to God, hand on my heart, last time I was with you in California, I almost pulled you aside after we were on, and I was going to tell you the story because I knew you knew Bill, and I was going to back channel see if there was anything to the story from Bill's side.
Wow.
So imagine 6 or 7 years since we talked on your show.
Yeah, I don't even know.
2018, somebody said to me today. But so anyway, started talking about it. But the point is, so here I am, fast forward, I'm just sick of seeing memes of my face with Bill's, and so I just decided on the spur of the moment, So Howie, of course, loves it. But I said on Howie's show that first time, I don't think Bill's my half-brother. I don't think there's anything there other than like an uncanny resemblance. Fast forward, the thing comes out, it gets a little bit of social media, and then it goes away, and I think, good. And Bill didn't say anything, so I figured Bill was kind of like, whatever, it was a mild amusement. You know, he could have made a joke out of the whole thing, and he didn't. So then Howie calls me, and I'm in LA working recently, and Howie's like, we've come on the show, Bill's gonna be on. And I said, is Bill cool with it? Oh yeah, no problem. So then I go there, and it's like, it turns into this thing that you see happening on camera. It's like, it's weirdness times, it's like a skit, but it's real. And Bill's on me, then Bill's on Howie, and it gets just, okay. So I just told you basically everything I know, okay? I have people I've known for 20, 30 years coming up to me going, what do you think? And I said, I don't think we're related. I mean, yeah, there's a resemblance, but I don't think we're related. Well, did you get a DNA test? And I'm like, no, I don't. There's nothing to get a DNA test for. Well, I think he's your brother. So people that know me and I'm telling them I don't think he's my brother, now they want a DNA test to prove it. That's how much it's taken on a life of its own.
Do you think it's just because they want a DNA test because it's fun if he's your brother?
No, they're convinced.
For real?
Yes.
Really?
For real. I swear to God. I mean, people I'm close to, people that were at my wedding, they're like, no, you need a DNA test.
Did Bill's dad know, did your dad know Bill's mom?
No, my father wouldn't talk to me about it at all. Okay, some more context.
Okay.
My stepmother in that same time, 10 years ago, when she told me that she thought Bill Burr was my half-brother, this guy I don't know, right? I mean, just imagine if hey, do you know Joe Polanski?
Right.
And you look up and it's a famous comedian. That's, you know what I mean? That was,
right.
So in that same thing with my stepmother, she told me that she thought my father had sired 12 children.
Whoa.
All over the place. All over the place. He was a traveling musician and a whore to his own admittance. So it kind of makes sense. He once told me he'd slept with 1,000 women. So 12 out of 1,000, you know what I mean? It's the
normal odds.
The math is
actually pretty good.
Yeah. And so when I went to my father and I told him what my stepmother had said, he got really cagey and wouldn't tell me anything. He promised me that he would write down the names of the illegitimate children on a piece of paper so I could find them after he died.
Oh my God.
And he's died and there's no paper.
Oh my God.
So now I got people wanting DNA tests because they're convinced that Bill is my half-brother.
Is Bill willing to do a DNA test?
I think that's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
no, you have to do it.
No, that's what I'm saying. I mean, first of all, to Bill's credit, he's been, everything you saw on camera was his general irritation on the thing, but he also kind of finds it funny because he's a comedian.
I thought it was a skit. I thought you guys put together a skit. I really did. I thought because I thought, Bill does a lot of acting. I thought you guys were just around. You like pro wrestling. I thought you guys just decided to troll the world.
Let me, in the heat of that moment with Bill and Howie egging it on, like the emotionality of the thing came out because it's sort of a weird thing. We're suddenly in the middle of a situation. It's like a meta situation.
Right.
So yes, on some level we were playing along, but then it starts to become like, wait, this is kind of weird, and then it starts to kick in, and then Billy Bush is in there, and it took on a life of its own. So what I'm saying is there's enough there that people are all over me to come up with more answers. But you see what I'm saying?
I do.
It's like it's spun out of control into its own thing. Now it's a DNA test problem, which is a bit on its own. We're going to do like a live stream. We'll do it here. Me, you, and Bill. You know what I mean?
Well, people would trust you if the two of you got together and just both took a DNA test and found out you were brothers.
I don't think Bill's my half-brother. But he looks...
Well, listen, there's a simple way to find out. I'll finance it. How much is a DNA test? How much does a DNA test cost to find out if someone's your sibling, Jamie? Let's find out. It can't be that much money. It's 2025. I'll do it.
We'll get it sponsored.
Yes, maybe 23andMe, but didn't they sell out to somebody? Somebody buy them? $200.
There you go.
I'll pay $200 to find out. Why wouldn't you want to know? What did Bill think about this? Like the possibility that his mother had an affair with your dad?
I don't think Bill gives it any credence. That's my sense of it.
Okay. He just thinks it's bullshit.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what Bill thinks. You know what I mean? If a person doesn't believe that somebody is their father, not their real father, that they grew up with, and I do know people who've had that. They grew up with somebody, and in fact, it just happened in my family.
Right.
That a cousin of mine found out that her father was not her father, and she's in her 60s. because of a DNA test.
Oh my God.
So it is possible that people can find out later in life, oh, by the way, that guy that you thought was your dad, he ain't your dad. Here's your real dad, right?
Right.
So it does happen. But I don't get any sense from Bill that he believes that it's possible.
Got it.
So the only way it would be possible if Bill grew up in some kind of weird lie. Like one time a guy tried to goad me into an argument of comparing myself to one of the top people in musical people in my generation. I don't want to say who, but you'll understand the flow on this. So, and they said, can you compare, you know, like, who do you think's better? So it was like a real cheese setup. And I said, well, I think they were more talented. And they said, but I said, I feel I'm in the conversation. And they said, why are you in the conversation? I said, because I'm alive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm here.
Well, it's also like you can't deny that Smashing Pumpkins didn't have some bangers. Like anybody who denies that.
Well, Joe, that's a whole other episode because the band is probably one of the most misunderstood. I mean, we're probably one of the most misunderstood bands in the history of rock and roll. I mean, that sounds like a wrestling statement, but it's fairly accurate.
What do you think that's from?
I think it has a lot to do with the issues of Gen X, and it has a lot to do with a relationship that I set into motion with the media when I was a very young person playing kind of a funny game, like doing my own version of Andy Kaufman or Bob Samuda. You understand?
Uh-huh.
Because I thought it was all shitty, so I was just like, I'm just going to play with this like a toy because I think it's kind of funny. I didn't realize that the coming culture was going to kind of almost be attracted to people who are willing to immolate themselves on the public stage. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Most people who are attracted to fame, they want to run towards the shiny part of it.
Right.
I was attracted to the non-shiny part, which is, okay, I'll light myself on fire and let's see what happens. Or I'll light you on fire and let's see what happens. So it kind of worked in the 90s when everybody was rolling and moving along. Well, here comes Napster, the music business craters. Then a bunch of people die. And there you are standing, you know, now at 40 years old. You're supposed to carry some flag for a generation that doesn't even know who it is anymore.
How do you navigate that? Like, did that trouble you at the time? Was it difficult to
Very
work
difficult.
as an artist?
Yeah, it's very difficult. The simple version is, and I had some of the top people in the music business sit me down one-on-one in a room and say, just give them what they want.
Jesus.
Your life will be a lot better, you'll make a lot more money, and you could put your head on your pillow at night and not have to think about all these things. And my response every time I said, I don't give a fuck. And I used to quote Popeye, I am what I am. I'm here because I'm a freak. Okay? And I ain't changing for anything.
Good for you.
And part of that goes back to my daddy. Okay? I watched a man literally broken by the business. So I'm the last person who's going to bow down for that. Fuck off.
Well, the beautiful thing is, too, you always had an audience. So you didn't have to.
Well, there is that, but at the end of the day, how can I explain it? Everybody in the music business will tell you your value is exponentially related to your success. So your biggest song is here, and your next biggest song is here, and there's like a pyramid. And as you go down, you lose value. Your aging becomes part of that loss of value. How do you maintain value, relevancy? You no longer have the record business that used to exist. You no longer have the structure. I mean, the music business is basically a touring business first now.
Right.
And everything else is in support of the touring business. We're lucky in that we continue to be a very large touring band. So you're told over and over again, almost in a propagandistic way, that your value is related to what's on a piece of paper. And then somehow I woke up in the middle of it and I thought, no, that's actually not my value. And so the minute I started saying, no, I know what my real value is. It's that I'm an independent artist who, like a voice in the wilderness, represents something. And I know it's not for everybody. Trust me, I've been getting that message since I was a little kid, including from my own family. But I know what I represents something that's valuable. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I see the consistency of the kind of, let's call it the communication between myself and somebody who's interested in what I do. And once I started doubling and tripling down on the value, my business started going back up. And the way I would say it in a crass way is I reasserted my brand. Not the brand I was being handed in 40 plus brand. You know, you're an oldies band, you're an oldies artist, you play these songs.
Well, you just kept and reinforced your true voice. Yeah.
But I had to live it.
Which
But I had
what
to,
brought you to the dance in the first place.
it seems silly, but that's what I had to figure out. I had to figure that out on my own because there was nobody telling me that. I mean, you got to understand, and you're a man of the world, so you know what I'm saying. When you're in a room with somebody who runs the world, in my case, runs the music business,
Yeah.
the guy who can get you done, the guy who can get you canceled, the guy who can make stuff happen.
Yeah.
And that guy tells you, here's your value. It's awfully hard to go back to Chicago, Illinois, and convince yourself that he's wrong.
Right. Right.
There's nobody, and who do you talk to about it?
Especially if fame is fleeting, it comes and goes, album sales come and go, and there's a new big thing right now, there's the new thing,
Oh,
and you're not the
there's
new
always
thing
the new thing.
anymore. Yeah, and then someone's coming along. Listen, you've got to listen to us. We
Mike,
know how you could be back on top.
I don't read comments, but I have a social media person who occasionally relays what she sees.
Oh boy.
Well, we kind of keep it on the positive. But my favorite comment of the last few years was she started poking around with young fans, 16, 18-year-olds, who were suddenly seeming to come out of the woodwork and liking the band and me. Almost like a cuddly bear or something. They suddenly were attracted to me in a way that the 16 and 18-year-olds of the previous generation weren't. So I asked her, I said, why don't you poke around with these people and ask them what's interesting? And my favorite comment, and it became kind of common amongst the feedback that she got, was, I like him because other people told me not to like him. But what that says to me, anybody can interpret it the way they want, but what it said to me is, we need people in the zeitgeist of the culture who don't represent the collective yes. There's always room for somebody on the corner saying no.
Right.
And that goes back to Lenny Bruce. As crazy as all that was, you still need that guy going, no, 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 no. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And you can call them whatever, disruptors or whatever.
Well, authentic voices.
That sounds nicer than disruptor. I like disruptor because that's what I do.
Well, it does disrupt, but it disrupts because it's an authentic voice, because it bucks the idea of creating some manufactured thing for the market.
I've told many people in the music business, I know that you don't want me in this business, but I'm here. And I've made a lot of money, and I've made a lot of people a lot of money. Like, what's the problem?
Also, you make great songs. Like,
But
the idea that
but most people are in the business for the music.
But the idea that somebody wouldn't want you in the business when you've been very successful in the business is just insane. It doesn't even make any sense.
Doesn't make sense to me.
Well, that's the weird thing that you guys have to deal with. You deal with like this whole layer of non-artistic people that have influence over art.
The story I wanted to tell you about my father was when I was on your show, I told you a story about how I found a double-barreled sawed-off shotgun under my father's bed. It was in a guitar case.
Right.
Well, my father heard the show about a month after I told the story on your show. And so I get this text from my father, this when he's still alive, obviously, and he goes, yeah, I heard what you said on Joe's show. And I'm like, you're looking at your phone like, here it comes, because I thought he was going to be pissed at me. He goes, there's one thing you left out of the story. Waiting, text. The shotgun wasn't loaded. That's all he wanted me to know. Like somehow it made it better.
How bizarre. Your father sounds like a character.
He was unbelievable. He should have been an arch criminal or something, but he didn't have the nerve.
So he just became a guitarist.
No, he was a drug dealer, and he used to run drugs and guns for the mob. I mean,
really?
Oh, he would do stuff like Melrose Park is kind of an infamous city just outside the Chicago city limits, where a lot of the mob wise guys lived. And he was friends with the kid of a wise guy, and the kid would dabble because he was protected because his father was a made man. So we go over to that guy's house for hours and just hear these crazy stories about the mob, and my dad would pick up something in a satchel and deliver it, like it was all, I was 8 years old going through all this shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a crazy environment.
Yeah.
So you're 8 years old, he's running drugs and guns.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you see like a lot?
I saw a lot of stuff, but it was like, when adults are trying to hide stuff from you, but not really.
Uh-huh.
So like, for example, they would stay in the basement all night, party, whoever he was with, musicians, whatever.
Right.
So I'd come down at night, and there'd be coke everywhere, and rolled up 20s on Black Sabbath mirrors. I was like 7, 10.
Oh my God.
So I had a feeling, call it intuition, I had a feeling that he wanted me to clean up, but not the mirrors. And I was like, what's on the mirror that you know, that you left behind. He was like, oh, that's have a cold or something. But yeah, it's good you didn't get rid of it. And they're like, why do you need the rolled up 20? Oh, it's just easier to, you know. It was like, so you knew it was bullshit, but you're 10, you don't know what Coke is.
Right.
So you don't have any concept of what they're doing, but you know something's going on.
And this was constant. This was
Yeah,
normal.
and my dad would do stuff like he'd take me to lunch with his mistresses and stuff and introduce them as his friends. And
Wow.
so it was all kind of in plain sight weirdness. But, you know, you'd be driving down the street and suddenly you were in a drug deal and it was just...
Whoa.
He told me he was shot at 9 times and stabbed 3 times.
Holy.
Yeah. You want to hear? It was one of my favorite stories.
Yeah.
So the band had a van. He had a van and we bought it off him. It was our band for a while. And then after we didn't need it anymore because we got too big, he wanted to buy it back, so we sold it to him. So one day I went over to his house, and if this is the driver's thing, well, right behind the driver's, where the driver's head would be, but in the metal of the car was a bullet hole. So I said, did somebody shoot at you? He goes, oh, yeah. I said, well, what happened? Yeah, exactly. He's like, yeah, I was stopped over there on Narragansett, and some guy came up, and I thought he needed something like $1 or something. So I rolled down the window. As soon as I did, he put a gun through the window at my head, and then, I hit the gas and sped off. And so as I went, he tried to shoot me, but then he missed, and the bullet went in behind my head, and I got away. That's the story he told me at the time. So years later, the story came back up somehow. He goes, oh, that wasn't the real story. Here's the real story. So same setup. He's sitting somewhere, but it was a drug deal. He rolls down the window to make the drug deal. Guy puts a gun at his head. He does hit the gas. The guy does try to shoot him. But because my father's mad now, he spins the van around and he tries to run the guy over. And the guy's trucking down the street. And the guy ran into a gas station. So my dad came barreling into the gas station at full speed in this van. And he was going to run the guy over. And he said he reached a point where the guy was going to, if the guy stopped, he would run him over, but the guy leapt a fence, and the only way to kill the guy was to have to run the fence and ram into a house that was next to the gas station. So he hit the brakes and didn't run the guy over. So that was the real story.
I just can't imagine a kid coming downstairs and seeing Coco over the mirrors and Black Sabbath albums and people blacked out and empty booze everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Like this is a normal
Totally
thing
normal.
at your house to have these wild parties.
Yeah.
And you're a
But
little
I
kid.
think to be fair, I think a lot of people grew up in that atmosphere. I think we just don't hear about it.
Yeah, but not a lot of people grew up with a dad that's running guns and drugs for the mob.
That's true. That's true. That is true.
That's so insane. That's such a crazy way.
Like we would have
to grow up.
conversations, because, as you get older, you start to ask questions, right?
Yeah.
So I'd say, Dad, aren't you worried, like, if you get pulled over? Because he would carry, like, a lot of weed in the car, just for his own personal use. He smoked constantly, like, my whole childhood. Like, I just remember joint after joint all day. At the dinner table, in the car, I'd contact high and the whole thing. So finally, at some point, I said, Daddy, aren't you worried about if you get pulled over? And he like, popped the engine, old cars, when you pop the trunk. What is it called? The hood.
The hood.
He had figured out some system where if you put weed in a thing full of whiskey, he said that the dogs couldn't pick up on the scent. So there was like a compartment in the engine compartment, like a thing that was full of whiskey, and then he would put a waterproof baggie with the weed in the whiskey, and so that if the dog came around the car, it would never smell it.
That's hilarious.
So it was like life lessons, from Pop.
But dogs can only smell one thing. They're only looking for one thing. When you train a dog either for a bomb or you train him for heroin. You don't train a dog for everything. Like, what do you got? 3 barks for Coke. The way they train dogs is it's one thing that they're trained to smell.
Oh, right, they have one.
Yeah, if they're looking for bombs, they're only looking for bombs. They're not going to stop you for weed.
Yeah,
Which is like the dumbest thing to train a dog for. Train a dog for weed.
Well, now, yeah.
Now, it's the dumbest. But they still do. They
Really?
still have weed dogs. Yeah. If they smell weed, they'll call the weed dog.
Is weed legal in Texas? I don't think
It's not. It's weird. It's decriminalized. There was actually a lawsuit that Ken Paxton tried to stop Dallas from decriminalizing weed, and they just lost in court. So Dallas now, marijuana is decriminalized for personal use. It's stupid. It should be the whole country. It should be legal, just like whiskey is. Don't do it if you don't want to do it. but you know, you should probably know what the effects are, and we should probably study what the actual correct dose is per person, like we know with drinks. Like one drink is one drink, right? You know what it is.
Yeah.
You go to the bar, you get a shot of tequila. That's what it is. It's one shot of tequila. Everybody's pretty much, it's standard. With weed, you don't know what.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
You don't know what's the right amount. Like, should I take 2 hits or 3 hits? What? You can build up a tolerance. Like your dad, you're smoking weed. Like if I smoked weed all day long, I'd be a mess. I'd be paranoid and freaked out. I'd be like, everyone's out to get me.
But he was.